Welcome to the NWO Sports Podcast. Here's your host, Logan Bailey.
Welcome to the NWO Sports Podcast Football Edition, brought to you by our primary sponsor, 3Chord. I'm your host, Logan Bailey, and joined today again by Keith Brown, AJ Fairchild, and Tony Fairchild. So thanks again for coming on the show, guys.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Logan.
We are into Week 8, and it's just flying by, as we always say. But thoughts going into Week 8 here?
Doesn't feel like Week 8 right now. It's like 90 degrees out there today for the 8th grade game.
Yeah.
Like Week 1 weather here.
Yeah. How often are you into October now and it's still 80s? But by Friday, it's going to be a little chilly, it sounds like. So it might feel a little closer to that October weather by Friday rolls around.
Yeah, being up on the roof might be a little chilly, boys.
Yeah, have to have alternative plans. But yeah, well, look, Week 8, we say the previous week, there's always some good games, and we got more good games coming up this week as we head down to the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, and just we were talking right before we went on, and just some other news in Ohio football, and I know we don't cover them, but talking about the powerhouse in Marion Local, and this was a stat that I thought was really interesting. Marion Local's head football coach, Tim Goodwin, just won his 300th win since starting at Marion Local in 1999. That's an average of 12.5 wins per year, which is unreal. That's almost like a regional berth every single year of playing. So I don't know many other programs, if any, of all time that have been that dominant.
That's just hard to believe. I mean, it's just... I can't wrap my head around that.
If you're a high school football coach, I mean, you got to go catch and try to figure out what Tim Goodwin is doing down there, because it's every single year they are contending for state championships, and really you look at them, they're in Division 7, so it's not like they're some big school either. So
it's another one of those schools, like we talked to Coach Cooper or Coach Muller about, how do you get so many kids out every year? And there's got to be something that they're doing that's bringing these kids back year after year after year after year. It's just something different in the water down there.
Yeah, and two, I mean, winning breeds a culture there too. If kids know that you're going to go and you're going to win state championships, they all want to be a part of that. So I believe even numbers for them have been like 100 or close to before. So very impressive. And just one more thing, Keith kind of mentioned about all the great games last week, and I had to laugh too, because we were obviously covering the Sonora-Ayersville game, and I talked to a guy at work today, and he's an Ayersville fan, and he goes, he's a little bit older, and he goes, I walked out with 3 minutes to go in the game. I said, oh man, what are you doing? You missed the best part in the game. Sonora, we'll get into it later, but Sonora had the game-winning drive, and that was probably one of the best rivalry games I've seen out of those two, Ayersville and Sonora, in a long time. So it's crazy to see how people miss out on things like that. So anyways,
had to beat the crowd.
I guess
he had to get his pizza before they closed from Drop Zone.
Yeah, with Drop Zone being there, and definitely a lot going on in Ayersville. All right, let's look at how we did for last week's picks. Looking at how everyone did, Logan, Keith, AJ, and Bryce all tied last week with a 15-2 record, while Tony and Matthew both had 14-3 records. At very good picking out of everyone. Matthew's still in the lead for the year with 102-27 records. Second is a tie between Logan and Keith at 99-30. Fourth is Tony at 97-32. Fifth is a tie between Bryce and AJ at 93-36. So everyone continues to do an excellent job at picking games week after week. So
hey, and one good thing, we broke the Van Wert streak.
Yeah, that's true too.
We all picked Van Wert and they won. So
yeah, hey, but it was close, 28-21 against OttawaGranger. So I'm sure that person was sweating a little bit with us all picking Van Wert. So let's go on. We're going to move into Week 7 game recaps, and we're going to get things rolling. The first game here is the NWO Sports Game of the Week, and that's Patrick Henry at Liberty Center. Liberty Center came away with this one huge, 62-0. The main storyline from this game was the unfortunate season-ending loss of Patrick Henry's superstar quarterback in Nash Meyer. Our prayers are with Nash and his recovery, and we just can't say enough good things about Nash and the impact he has had on and off the field. So going into that game, it was going to be an uphill battle for Patrick Henry, I think, in the first place. But on top of that, you lose your star quarterback as well. So very tough outing for Patrick Henry. Even going into this game, we talked, I think I would have honestly said maybe given Patrick Henry 30 points at least. Yeah. But Liberty Center, it's just complete domination week after week. I put on here, it's like a buzzsaw almost. It's teams just roll up, and Liberty Center just takes them away. And I said before, too, actually the closest team that has had a chance at actually beating Liberty Center was the first game of the year, and that was Sonora, in which they beat 21-0. So it's just unbelievable to see how dominant the Tigers are. So this game was 41-0 at halftime. Looking at total yards, Liberty Center had 493 with 395 rushing, which they do game after game. Patrick Henry, 83 yards total, which is very crazy to think of a high-powered offense like that. Turnover battle, Liberty Center had 0. Patrick Henry had 3, 2 interceptions and 1 fumble. Looking at some top players and players of note, Liberty Center running back Colton Cruz, 8 carries, 139 rushing yards, good for 17.4 yards a carry. 5 rushing touchdowns, 2 receptions for 33 receiving yards. Running back and brother Trenton Cruz, 8 carries, 149 rushing yards, 18.6 yards a carry. 2 rushing touchdowns, 1 reception, 11 receiving yards. And quarterback Landon Amstutz, 7-7, 100%, 98 passing yards. He's done a really nice job since taking over the reins at quarterback this season. A couple key guys from Patrick Henry. Defensive lineman Grant Smith had 2 sacks and 5 tackles. Kid's just a sophomore, but he's still tearing things up, even against some of the best in the league. Running back Houston Miranda, you look at some stats, they really shut down that running attack. Only 9 carries, 21 rushing yards. And Lincoln Krieger filled in and tried to do his best at quarterback. He finished 7-17, 41%, 53 passing yards with 2 interceptions. And then the last guy, wide receiver Landon Johnson, he had 4 receptions, which led the team, 20 receiving yards. He actually broke the career reception record with 191 career receptions, and that record was previously held by former Major League Baseball player and Houston Astro Mark Krause. And now Landon actually owns 3 records in the Patriot football program. So guys, thoughts on the Patrick Henry and Liberty Center game?
I caught some of that game. I went back and watched some of that game, and I tell you what, it was just unbelievable, the dominance from Liberty Center up front. I mean, it just, they're good up front. They're big. They're strong. But the other thing that I noticed with those guys, they were rotating players in. Like they were, throwing that unbalanced offensive line in there and then just blowing and watching guys get the second level and just, it was a domination by Liberty Center. But, unfortunately, Nash was hurt before the game. I thought he got hurt during the game, but he was actually hurt before the game. I didn't know that he never even played. So I guess he got hurt the week before or something, and I didn't even know that. But, yeah, it's unfortunate. How much of a difference that would have made, boy, I don't know, because Liberty Center just looked dominant.
It just seems like they're walking through the NWAL right now. I don't know who the rest of the teams they play are. Where are they at in their record or in their games right now? Who do they have coming up?
Let me look.
Because at this point, I don't see anybody even coming close to stopping them for the conference title.
They have Evergreen, Delta, and Wauseon at the end.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't see Wauseon putting up any fight against them after seeing what they've done to Archbold and Patrick Henry. I don't see that outcome being any different. They're going to be looking at playoffs here soon. I think they've probably already locked that in, I would assume.
I would think they are.
They're probably closing in and locking the hosting it. I'm sure if they're not already there. But, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in playoffs. I don't want to speak too soon, but, until they get to Marion Locals, I think still in the same division, right?
No, American Local 7.
Liberty Center's Division 5. So.
Oh, they went. Okay, yeah. I knew things got changed this year. I couldn't remember which way it went. But man,
PH went down.
Okay. Yeah, I know some people got bounced around, but regardless, they're going to be fun to watch in playoffs.
Keith?
Yeah, on the field, complete dominance by Liberty Center, right? As JJ said perfectly. I really don't see anybody even sniffing them here in the last 3 games. So they're just rolling into the playoffs. Win probably host the game, or probably the first 2, actually. Just can't stop them offensively, defensively. We thought last year they were good. I mean, we watched them throughout last year and even saw them in person. And even this year, it's like they're better than last year with all the graduations. And you would have thought that was nearly impossible. As Tony said, a healthy PH, even with Nash, I don't think really probably stood too much of a chance in this game. And talk about off the field, yes, losing Nash, like for Patrick Henry, that's a huge blow, and we feel sorry for him. I mean, just really an injury you can't do anything about, unfortunately. It's just one of those things that happens, and you just have to grow from it and learn from it. And but, yeah, a huge loss for Patrick Henry. I mean, the impact he made on the field, off the field.
Oh, yeah.
It's
just a great kid and a great
absolutely.
leader overall.
One of those like leaders that's a leader on the field, off the field. Little kids looked up to him. I mean, it's unfortunate, but in the end, it's I guess a teaching moment for life somehow or another. Right. God has a plan for Nash, and that's just the way it went.
Yeah, and one quick point too I want to make in this game. We give the running backs for Liberty Center, a lot of the Cruz brothers get a lot of those carries, and they do excellent jobs, but I don't want to leave out the unsung heroes of that offensive line and that defensive line led by Landon Bockelman and Seth Navarre, because none of this domination would be possible if it weren't for those guys up front. Because you look at the score, when you're giving up 0 points and you're putting up 62 and you're running the ball for almost 400 yards a game, those hogs up front are tearing people up, and they're making some noise. And a lot of the success this season goes to both those offensive and defensive lines. So that's just one point I really wanted to make, because those kids are doing an excellent job. And like we've talked about too, they have a lot of physicality, and it's hard for teams to put up with.
Yeah, dude, I tell you what, I was watching them, and the way those guys got to second level was just, they were pulling and just knocking people down, and they were out there running in front of the running backs. And the other thing that I kind of liked was how the running backs were patient. They were just kind of letting those guys get out in front of them and just guide, kind of running right behind him. Why not, right?
Yeah, right. Wait for the hole.
Somebody 6'4" running in front of me. Yeah, I'll stay behind. I'll just hide back here. When he finally puts a shoulder on somebody, then I'll move. But they do a great job up front.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. We've seen Liberty Center play some quality teams, and we got to see Archbold, and we thought Archbold's offensive and defensive lines were phenomenal, and Liberty Center just. No team has been no match for their offensive and defensive lines in the trenches. So I just wanted to give them a huge shout out for their efforts.
Another quick point was their linebacker play. Those guys fill the gap so fast. And I'm sorry, I don't know the gentleman's number 19, but man, he just flying through the gaps. And next thing you know, he's on top of somebody. It's like, man, I'm like, okay, I go back and look at this. And where did he come from? Oh, there he is. They're just all around. They're playing super well right now, and they're going to be hard to stop in the near future anyway.
All right, we'll keep things rolling. Looking at the next game, we're looking at the River rivalry, and we were actually at this game. This was Sonora at Ayersville, and Sonora ended up winning this one 14-8 in a thriller. And I have to say, this is probably one of the better football games I've watched in a while, and it was one of the best River rivalry games of all time. And obviously, I know we're Sonora guys, but both teams were just so evenly matched. There was a lot of emotion. The physicality from both sides, and just seeing Grady Gusweiler, running back from Sonora, match up with Brady Clark, linebacker from Ayersville, and those two would collide, and there was force, and you could hear it out there on the field, and it was just like, holy cow, what are we watching? This is awesome to watch. But yeah, just the collision between those two. It was close the entire game. And we said going into this game, some keys that we knew both teams could run the ball, but it was going to be who could force the other team to throw. And, it wasn't really ended up being forced to throw, but Sonora ended up choosing to throw the ball, and they did that by choice, and they did an excellent job. That was led by efforts of quarterback Dominic Graziani. And looking towards the end of the game, Sonora was actually down 7 of 8 with 2 minutes to go, and the Rams were down to their final, I believe they were down to 4th and 1.
Fourth and 2.
Or 4th and 2 on their half of the field. So they still had about 50, 60 yards to go, and they had to get this 4th down. And somehow quarterback Dominic Graziani was the savior. He scrambled all over the field and was able to secure the huge first down to keep the drive going. And then Graziani, he proceeded to march the Rams down the field. With 1:15 left to play, Graziani scrambled for 16 yards and into the end zone to put the Rams up. So very exciting ending. Not only that, but Dominic also had the game-sealing interception as well. And I'll have to insert that call from you guys. I know I was down on the field with the interception, but I said the excitement to see out of you guys in the booth screaming, "Oh, Graziani!" That was one of the coolest calls from probably our broadcast of all time. So very awesome by you guys. I had to go back and watch that, so it was really cool.
Fishball in the shotgun, straight back drop, looks to the sideline, throws it out there, picked off by Dominic Graziani, picks it off, and that will end it here. Dominic Graziani picks off the sideline pass. Read that one perfectly.
Hey, what'd I tell you guys? I put Dominic Graziani there so use your speed. I didn't think he would jump in front of that pass like that, but he read that all the way and jumped it, guys.
So looking at some top players of note from Sonora, obviously we said his name a lot. Our quarterback Dominic Graziani was 12 of 23, 52%, 118 passing yards, 17 carries, 83 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and 1 game-sealing interception. Running back Grady Gusweiler, 11 carries, 47 rushing yards, 4 receptions. He had 39 receiving yards. Linebacker Braden Rosti, he was a factor on defense, 10 tackles, which led the team. And running back Joey Gusweiler, 5 carries for 20 rushing yards. And I was really shocked to see that because he was just like I don't even know, a shot out of a cannon when he ran the ball. So
I'm going to crack you for a minute. It's Joey Geisinger.
Joey Geisinger.
It's not just me. See, Bridget, it's not me.
Yeah, Joey Geisinger. Oh my gosh, we always get their last names mixed up all the time.
I saw that. And I was like, I'm just going to let him say it.
Oh yeah. So, anyways, looking at Ayersville, some key players. Linebacker Brady Clark. We've talked about him. 10 tackles. A very physical player who plays downhill. It was exciting to watch him. Wide receiver Ray Wolfram, 3 receptions, 46 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. Quarterback Lucas Fishball was 5 of 13, 38%, 53 passing yards. He had 1 passing touchdown, 1 interception. And running back linebacker Torrin Knieven, 20 carries, 46 rushing yards, 9 tackles, and 2 tackles for loss. So, guys, we were all here. What were your thoughts on the game?
Just so much excitement for the score, honestly. Final drive, it was 8-7, but Rams had so many opportunities, had a touchdown call back, had a missed field goal. I mean, Ayersville, same, marched up and down the field at times. But you see the score, and you're like, man, there really wasn't much action. This was, as Logan said, action packed from start to finish.
Yeah.
And hard hitting. I mean, Brady Clark, probably the best defensive performance we've seen on the field this year. He was just flying all over the place.
He popped some of the Sonora kids pretty good,
yes,
too.
He did. But I don't even know where to start. It was a fantastic game. And as I said, Dominic Graziani, as Logan pointed out, played Houdini there. Well, I think one of the Ayersville kids actually had the hold of his sleeve, and somehow Dom's shook out of it, rolled to the far side, and got the first down. Then after that, it was just he was on a mission.
He was
to get the Rams down the field, and he did it in almost record time. And huge shout out to Carter Gilliam.
Yeah,
nice fantastic catch going across the middle there.
And took a shot.
Yes, he did. And Rams defense, one of the better defensive performances, probably the best defensive performance of the year so far. I would guess in my eyes. But Dom from the time they got the ball at about the Ayersville 25, probably.
I run that.
With about 2:12 to go. And that, as Logan said, that 4th down and 2, I don't know how he got out of it.
I always say when he scrambles, it's like he's got Vaseline on him or some butter, because kids try to tackle him, and he's just so elusive, and the way that he weaves in and out of kids, and
it's like he's got eyes in the back of his helmet.
Oh, I know.
Really, like he can see.
There was a couple of scrambles that he had, and I remember vividly that he was running, and he just changed direction so quick. He broke the Ayersville kid's ankles like he's playing basketball. So it was impressive.
I mean, we haven't really been hard on Dom this year, but we've seen last year's growth, and then this year's growth is kind of stunted at times, but this could be that performance that just like elevates him to the next level, confidence-wise, and everything, just to take the Rams into the playoffs. A big week coming up this week against Paulding, but as far as this game, one of probably the best river rivalry we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, this is one of those games where if you're a football fan of any kind, gets the hair standing up on your arms in that last, 3 minutes of the game when it's
both crowds going, bands on both sides, and cheerleaders. It was a fantastic atmosphere.
And we're right in front, or right behind the student section of Sonora, and it was loud. We couldn't even hear ourselves in the headsets for a good portion of the last 2 minutes there. It was very adrenaline filled, even for us in the stands. I can't imagine what those kids down on the field, both sides, coming up to those last few plays, could feel in that. It was just fantastic game on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and you guys mentioned it. I mean, I don't have much more to say other than, Dominic. That's like Keith. You mentioned Dominic's been struggling a little bit this year. When we all know that everybody's followed Sonora and knows Dominic's been struggling. But this is a game where he kind of broke out a little bit, made some real nice passes, and hopefully they can build upon that and go forward, because he's made some bad reads at times. But I thought, Friday night he made about 3 really good reads in that last drive there that kept the team moving down the field. And there's a couple questionable plays there, like why do we spike the ball? A couple things like that. Like I've talked to several people, like, why do we spike the ball there? I'm like, well, we were kind of questioning that too. It's like, I don't know why we spiked the ball, but but hey, in the end, got the ball in the end zone and walked away with the victory.
Yeah, an excellent job by both coaching staffs. I mean, this one could have gone either way, honestly, and it was just a very well smash mouth put together football game. And if you were a fan, you definitely got your money's worth.
Yeah, but a great interview by Logan after the game. Coach Becker he really didn't know what to say. And so much excitement, and you could hear it in his voice. I mean, fantastic job.
Yeah, I'll have to insert that interview because I went down there and I had chills, and I was almost getting emotional trying to talk to him because he was so excited, and like the hair was standing up, like AJ was saying, was on me. And I told Eric, I said, I'm not even coaching right now. I'm just watching the game, and we were broadcasting, and I said, I'm excited. So that was just awesome to see. So I'll have to insert that interview.
All right, I'm down here with Coach Eric Becker. Heck of a win, Coach. What's going through your mind right now?
Wow. Yeah. That's about as hard of a defensive fought battle as you could have. A couple of years ago, it was like 7-6. It reminds me of it. I mean, the last couple of years, we knew moving the ball was going to be hard. End of the day, turnover won. Preach the turnover battle. Win the turnover battle. Win the turnover battle. I think we did. Good things come. This is for the entire community.
Unbelievable. The emotions right now. I got chills right now, and I'm not even coaching. So congratulations on that. You know, on the last drive, what was going through your mind?
We knew we practiced 2-minute drill every day. It's one of the things that we knew going into the season that was going to be important for us. And we practiced one timeout, no timeout. And they just let us have the soft spot. Dom, that's why you have an athlete at quarterback. You just let him run everything breaks down, he runs the ball. He does great.
Congratulations, Coach. Go celebrate. Good to bring the bell back.
And then that call of Dom's huge interception. So those are two huge moments.
There's one other thing is was kind of neat to see Coach Becker coming out there on the Gator just banging that bell as he was ringing that bell as he was driving out through there. So that was good for them. That was pretty awesome.
Nobody was around. Everybody was gone. Just like a select few. Here comes Coach Becker on the Gator with the victory bell. Da-ding, da-ding, da-ding.
So, yeah, nonetheless, that was a great game, and I'm excited for next year's rivalry. So let's look at the next game. Columbus Grove at Lipsick, and Columbus Grove came away with this one winners 28-14. This was a huge win in terms of Northwest Conference standings, as now Columbus Grove and Bluffton remain at the top, both 4-0 in the league. Columbus Grove is really starting to find a groove. They're rattling off a 4-game win streak since dropping a loss in Week 3 to Patrick Henry. And you look at this game, and Columbus Grove took an early 21-7 halftime lead. Turnover battle, Columbus Grove, they had one fumble. Lipsick, they had 3, 2 fumbles and 1 interception. And guys, I got to say, I did pick this one right. So Bryce and I were the only ones that had Columbus Grove. So looking at some key players from Columbus Grove, Trenton Barraza, running back, he's been a staple in that offense. He had 24 carries, 146 rushing yards. I know he didn't have any touchdowns scored, but man, does his efforts, do they not go unnoticed by us, because he is just a workhorse for that offense. Quarterback Landon Best was 5 of 9, 54 passing yards, 14 carries, 40 rushing yards. He had 3 rushing touchdowns. And then there was also a huge play that was a forced fumble sack by Kylan Mays and Kyle Lathrop with the fumble recovery and return for 22 yards for a touchdown on defense. So I'll insert that highlight as well. So excellent job by the Columbus Grove Bulldogs. So thoughts on this game here?
Yeah, Columbus Grove quietly is starting to put things together. I think they started 1-2, I believe.
Yeah, they dropped their home opener to Pandora Gilboa. Or the first game opener to Pandora Gilboa, and they had some struggles here and there, dropping the one to PH. But man, they're putting things together now.
Coach Schaefer has them playing fantastic. As Logan said, Trenton Barraza, he's been pretty much steady all year, and Landon Best both.
Yeah, I watched. That was another game I caught a little bit. It happened to be on TV, and I caught a little bit of the game, and just watching him run the ball. Man, he does run the ball hard. He runs downhill, and I watched him run over top of a guy. I'm like, and I heard the announcer talk about Barraza. I'm like, figured that's who that was. But, that was a good game, and kind of a shocker there, I think, to Lipsick. I think maybe they went in there a little bit too confident, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, Lipsick was 6-0 going into that game, too. So, AJ?
Got nothing. Just like you said, Keith, they're really starting to find their groove right now, and it's kind of surprised me. I thought Lipsick had a little more handle on that game, but hey, proved me wrong, and go Columbus Grove.
All right, we'll keep things rolling. Next game, Wayne Trace at Antwerp, and this was another good game in the Green Meadows Conference. Antwerp ended up winning this one 30-27, and this game at halftime was even close, with Antwerp being up 24-21. Looking at total yards, Antwerp had 349, 301 passing. Wayne Trace had 270, 159 passing. Turnovers, Antwerp had 4, 3 fumbles and 1 interception, and Wayne Trace had 1. You look at some other key players from Antwerp. Carson Altimus was 22 of 34, 65%, 301 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, and 1 interception. And the crazy stat about that was Altimus's first interception of the year.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's phenomenal.
Yes.
His touchdown to interception ratio for the year, get this, 26-1.
Wow. That's amazing.
I guess I didn't even realize that. So very excellent job out of Altimus. Obviously, I mean, no one likes to throw an interception, but to make it through 7 games of the year until you throw your first pick, that's phenomenal.
I mean, is he being looked at? I mean, I don't mean to jump in here, but
no, I don't know. I mean, I haven't really heard much buzz, but that's the thing that's unfortunate, because there's kids like Altimus and even Brewer, and I know Brewer's probably getting some looks for basketball, but these are kids that can definitely play at the next level.
Yeah.
And they deserve some looks. So, hopefully, I don't know, maybe us talking about him a lot can help them with that.
I don't know, but gosh dang, he's a great athlete. He's got a cannon for an arm. He definitely can go play someplace for sure.
3-sport athlete that's excellent, and he excels in everything he does. So very impressive.
Yep.
Looking at some other key players, wide receiver Landon Brewer had 10 receptions, 111 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. Wide receiver Tavin Scholl, 3 receptions, 115 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. Linebacker Reed Leachy, 13 tackles, led the team, 1 interception, 1 pass deflection, and 1 tackle for loss. And then looking at some key players from Wayne Trace, quarterback Kyle Stoller was 13 of 23, 129 passing yards, 8 carries for 33 rushing yards, and 1 rushing touchdown. Quarterback Cooper Wenslick was 2 of 7. 30 passing yards, 9 carries, 54 rushing yards with 2 rushing touchdowns. And wide receiver Brady Miller had 6 receptions for 54 receiving yards. So thoughts on this game here?
Guys, I did a lot of watching of football after it was over, because I caught some of this game too. And I didn't. The score shows 30-27, but actually Wayne Trace scored with like 40 seconds to go in the game, and they were down by 9. So, there was really no way for them to win unless they recovered an onside kick and made some miraculous play. But actually, I take that back. I think they scored with no time on the clock, if I remember right. They scored with no time on the clock. I talked to some people there that were there at the game and at work, and they said basically Wayne Trace just didn't have anything for them. And the receivers, they just couldn't cover them up, and they said they didn't get any pressure on Altimus, and Altimus just stood back there and kind of picked them apart.
We all picked Antwerp last week, but we all kind of collectively said that would be a good game to watch, and it proved it to be. 3-point game between 2 conference teams is always a good game to watch, and I think they play Ayersville this week, which is going to be another tough fight for Antwerp. But I think Antwerp's going to come out on top of that one too. But I think it's going to be a similar aspect where it's going to be 1-score game at the end of the game.
All right, we'll keep things rolling. We got a lot more games to get to. Looking at Defiance at Elida. Defiance ended up losing this game 19-18, and this was a heartbreaker for Defiance. Defiance actually led 18-7 early in the 4th quarter. Elida scored with 13 seconds left for a come-from-behind win. And Defiance had an opportunity to intercept the ball in the end zone and seal the game, but was unable to. Looking at total yards, Defiance had 469 yards, 329 rushing. Elida had 302 yards, 265 passing, some turnovers. Defiance had 2, 1 interception, 1 fumble. Elida had 2, 1 interception, 1 fumble. Key players for Defiance, athlete Anthony Wilder, 14 carries, 172 rushing yards, good for 12.3 yards a carry, 1 rushing touchdown, 6 receptions for 45 receiving yards. Quarterback Brez Ziffel was 13 of 20, 149 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, 1 interception with 9 carries, 65 rushing yards, and 1 rushing touchdown. And wide receiver Jordan Wright for the Bulldogs, 1 reception, 40 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. And I know one thing in this game, I was told by one of the players that the field, it was almost wet, and they had kids slipping all over, which I said, why is it wet? There wasn't any rain on Friday, so I know that the surface was kind of an issue for that game as well. So thoughts on the Defiance at Elida game?
Just looking at the stats, 469 yards by Defiance, and they only have 18 points. That's wow. You would normally with that many yards, you see a lot more points up on the board. Same with Elida, 302 yards, only sitting at 19. So lots of offense in this game with not much scoring.
I was told they had the ball inside the 20 twice and couldn't punch it in the end zone. So
ouch.
I think once inside the 10 and the other one inside the 20 and couldn't get it in. So that would that's why he had so many yards.
Right.
But I guess I'm looking at, why does Brogan Castile have 11 carries and 61 yards and Abel Rubio 6 carries? Where did Anthony Wilder come from carrying the ball 14 times?
One of my points.
It makes me think, was there a discipline issue or was there something else going on that we don't know about?
I'm not sure. I mean, getting 11 carries, I don't know. Maybe that's the way the game played out too.
Yeah,
it's hard to say. So I think, definitely too, I'm imagining the surface, it sounded like had a big factor to play in the game. So yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, they definitely ran the ball for quite a bit, and Anthony Wilder had a heck of a game, but at the end of the day, the Bulldogs just came up a little bit too short.
Missed extra points too, is what I was told. They scored 3 times and didn't get an extra point.
Okay.
So,
yeah, it's tough, but the Bulldogs are still having a great season, and you got to keep your heads up because there's still a lot of football left for those guys.
there's still. I mean, if they finish the season out, they're going to be in the playoffs.
That's one of these games that probably disappointing. Defiance should have won, but come playoff time, you could use it to your advantage because you have to go through something tough like this again for Coach Cooper.
All right, let's look at the next game here. Fairview at Edgerton, and Fairview actually won this game 44-35. Edgerton was leading 21-14 at half, and Fairview came from behind to win the game thanks to 22 fourth-quarter points. And Fairview snapped an 18-game losing streak. And this marks Coach Doug Rake's first win since returning back for his second stint at Fairview. Congratulations to Coach Rakes. And Keith, he is not wearing a Fairview jersey.
Not a Fairview jersey.
So
no.
I said I was surprised, him being a Sonora guy, that he was wearing a Fairview jersey when he walked up here, but he can tell you a little bit about that. Looking at total yardage from this game, Fairview 386, 217 passing. Edgerton 396 for 267 passing. Turnover battle, Fairview had 1 interception and Edgerton had 1 interception. So looking at a couple key players from both teams, Fairview quarterback William Zedike was 19 of 30, 63%, 217 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns. He did have 1 interception, but he had 17 carries for 110 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, totaling 5 touchdowns for the game. Wide receiver Logan Allingers had a great season for the Apaches, 9 receptions, 125 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. He also had 7 carries for 28 rushing yards with 1 rushing touchdown. And wide receivers Gavin Garza and Gavin Mead both had 1 receiving touchdown. Looking at Edgerton, quarterback Maddox Baker, 23 of 33, good for 70%, 267 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, 1 interception. And wide receiver / defensive back Scotty Krantz, 12 receptions, 188 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. And he also contributed 6 tackles, 1 interception on defense, and linebacker Joel Walkup led the team with 10.5 tackles. Thoughts on this game here?
Yes, first off, this is not a Fairview jersey. It's All the Right Moves football jersey from back in the day. Actually, one of Tom Cruise's first movie.
Oh, my gosh.
Actually, really good. It's honestly a really good football movie.
Yeah,
I think it's like an 83, but this is a All the Right Moves jersey and not a Fairview jersey. Sorry, Coach Rakes and the Apaches. But yeah, congratulations to Coach Rakes for getting his first win in the second tenure. And it's good to get that monkey off your back for the Fairview football program, players, coaches, parents, and community. Just feel like you've been close a couple times. You've been playing well, and finally you break through the ice and just feel like a big relief. And Apaches played well. Big comeback there in the fourth quarter, 22 points.
Yeah, good game for Fairview, and a tough break for Edgerton to apparently didn't get all the halftime adjustments made. So it's unfortunate they've been so good for so long at Edgerton and coming back, and they're really struggling this year. So they'll get it together.
Yep.
All right, let's look at the next game. Ottawa-Glandorf at Van Wert, and this one was close. Van Wert ended up winning 28-21. And first off, I want to say that Ottawa-Glandorf is much better than their 0-7 record, and that's for sure, because they've played some tough teams, obviously being in the WBL. There's been a lot of close games, too. So Ottawa-Glandorf, these last couple games, I don't know if they're a team I necessarily want to play to end the season because they will play you tough. Looking at this game was actually tied 14-14 at halftime. With Ottawa-Glandorf striking first, scoring a touchdown in the first quarter, and holding a lead. Total yards, Van Wert had 312 with 183 passing. Ottawa-Glandorf, 329 yards, 175 passing. Turnovers, they tied 1-1 with a fumble for each team. And this game was 21-21 going into the fourth quarter, but it would be thanks to a Brylan Parker 1-yard rushing touchdown to eventually be the touchdown that led to Van Wert's win. And there's no need to worry about throwing interceptions. And we kind of talked about some of the issues that they had with that, but Brylan Parker returned to running the ball like his running back days with 31 carries. So he finished the game 16 to 27 passing, 59%, 183 passing yards, 31 carries, 111 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, and a great performance out of him. Wide receiver Connor Campbell, 8 receptions, 140 receiving yards. Linebacker Aaron Reichert, 12 tackles that led the team with 1 tackle for loss. Looking at a couple kids from Ottawa-Glandorf, quarterback Peyton Coleman, 8 of 27, 154 passing yards with 1 passing touchdown, 9 carries, 85 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown. And then looking at some other guys, wide receiver defensive back Grant Schroeder, 3 receptions, 90 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown with 12 tackles on defense. And then linebacker Dane Dooling, 10 tackles and 2 tackles for loss. Thoughts on the Ottawa-Glandorf at Van Wert game?
I was just calculating up the stats there. Brylan Parker was responsible for 294 of the 312 yards. Wow.
That's awesome.
Putting the ball in your athlete's hand right there.
Yes.
I'm just looking at the stats too, AJ. There was 9 rushing attempts or 10 rushing attempts. That wasn't his. Other than that, he was involved in everything else.
Yeah, like Logan said, Ottawa-Glandorf just got bad luck. Close, just can't get over the hump. And as he said, one of those teams you don't want to see on the schedule coming up.
Yeah, playing teams tough.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely playing teams tough. Just, they're playing tough teams. So that doesn't help either, but, man.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, Van Wert, we know that they're a quality team, but they've kind of struggled here towards the middle to later end of the season. But I think they got to keep working to make improvements, which this week we saw. There was no interceptions, very limited turnovers. They only had 1 fumble, which that's a great improvement from the last few weeks that we've seen out of the Cougars. So they're definitely heading in the right direction, but they've got to make things quick because playoffs are right around the corner. So on the flip side, Ottawa-Glandorf, got to keep grinding. It's hard, but again, like I said, they're much better than their 0-7 record shows. Let's move into the next game. Boucher at Napoleon. Napoleon ended up winning this game 48-6, and this marks Napoleon's 3rd win in a row as they start to find a rhythm during the final stretch of the regular season. Boucher actually started off the game with an 81-yard kick return to put him up 6, and Napoleon would go on to score 48 unanswered points. And this game was 28-6 at halftime, and Napoleon had a commanding lead on Boucher. Looking at total offense, Napoleon had 356, 332 rushing. Boucher had 161 with 94 passing. Turnover battle, Napoleon had 0. Boucher had 2 with 1 interception and 1 fumble. Some key players from Napoleon: running back Jacob Aguilar, 16 carries, 155 rushing yards, good for 9.7 yards a carry and 1 rushing touchdown. Running back George Eggers, 11 carries, 58 rushing yards. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. And quarterback Owen Espinoza completed a 24-yard touchdown pass to wide receiver Trey Rubenstein. So thoughts on the Boucher at Napoleon game?
Well, one name you don't see here is Trey Rubenstein, which means
he caught a touchdown.
Right, but stat like.
Oh, yeah.
Right. But it just goes to prove Napoleon is, in my opinion, playing probably the best they've played in years, and they have an honest chance. Napoleon players, mute your ears here. They actually have an honest chance of winning out and hosting a playoff game.
Good, wow. Really?
Yes. Yeah, I was just looking at their schedule. I mean,
so don't look too far ahead.
I mean, they got
Coach Wary will not allow
Clay,
that to
Bowling Green, and Southview. I mean, started the season 0-4. I can definitely go.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know about Southview.
They could finish 5-5, 6-4, and with any luck, could host a playoff game. So playing as good as anybody in the area.
Yeah, and we just talked about Ottawa-Glandorf, their 0-7 record being deceiving. Napoleon's the same way. Yeah. You look at, and I know Napoleon was getting a lot of grief from
early on, the first 3 weeks.
From the community and fans. Yeah. I heard a lot of things about Napoleon. And you look at some of the teams they played, like we've said this multiple times, with Liberty Center, Defiance, those are 2 good teams. Yep. And you look at some other games, they hung with Anthony Wayne through 3 quarters just a few weeks ago. Now they're winning 3 in a row. They're finding a rhythm. So, Napoleon's definitely a contender. And like Keith said, I mean, they have a good shot at A, making the playoffs, but B, I didn't even know about even hosting. Yeah. So that would be pretty impressive for considering all things considered of how their season started. So that would be a much better position than I think a lot of people expected at the beginning of the year. Let's move on to the next game here. Wauseon at Delta. Wauseon won this game 38-6, and this game was in complete control of Wauseon's hands with a 31-0 halftime lead. Total yards, Wauseon had 274 with 205 passing, Delta with 139, 121 rushing. Turnover battle, Wauseon had 0, Delta had 3. 2 fumbles, 1 interception. Looking at key players from Wauseon, wide receiver, defensive back, Mr. Showtime himself. I'll keep saying it because he goes and produces each week. Tyson Rodriguez, 6 receptions, 106 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, 7 tackles on defense. Quarterback Trey Parsons, another great performance out of him. 14 of 20, 70%, 205 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns. He also had 6 carries for 43 rushing yards. And wide receiver Wyatt Smith for the Indians, 4 receptions, 58 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. And from Delta, running back Carl Warner, 9 carries, 62 rushing yards. Thoughts on the Wauseon at Delta game?
I gave it a shot. I picked Delta. Gave it a shot, Delta guys. No, I had I was hoping that Delta could pull one out, but not surprised.
Yeah, Tyson Rodriguez putting up some of the better stats in the area this year.
Yeah, he sure is. Trey Parsons also. He's having a decent little season here.
Steady year for Trey. Yep.
Yeah, he's been that's the best way to put it. Very steady.
Yep.
He hasn't been up and down. He's just been playing very well, very steady, and allowing his team to help rally around him.
Yep. Yeah, and Trey's done a nice job. Even I think last year we gave him the Iron Man of the Year award for things. And he's just a kid that, through a lot of adversity, things like that, may not have played right away. He's really come into his own and has done an excellent job at quarterback, and he produces each week. And we looked at it, I think, when we talked to Coach Sean Moore from Wauseon, you look at the stats, and Trey's actually one of the best in the league. Yeah. So he's doing a very nice job over there at Wauseon. So let's keep things rolling. Next game, Swanton at Archbold. Archbold won this one 49-7. The halftime score was actually 49-7. Total yards, Archbold had 381, 197 rushing. Swanton had 122 yards, 81 rushing. Turnover battle, Archbold had 0. Swanton had 3 with 2 interceptions and 1 fumble. Some key players from Archbold, quarterback Cade Brenner, absolutely surgical. He was perfect, 6 of 6, 100%. 151 passing yards with 3 passing touchdowns. Running back Lucas Dominic, 11 carries, 74 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown, 3 receptions, 63 receiving yards with 2 receiving touchdowns. And wide receiver Jack Hurst, he does it all. 3 carries, 56 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown. He had 1 reception for 19 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown, and he had 1 50-yard punt return for a touchdown. So a little bit of everything coming from Jack Hurst. So thoughts on the Swanton at Archbold game?
Not really for me. I was picked that when Archbold was going to pretty much take care of business there. So Jack Hurst, good game, bud. Good game.
Keith, AJ?
Right there with you. Kind of expected this one, but not much else to say.
Yeah, Archbold playing, again, some of the better ball in the area. Unfortunately, they're in Division 5, Region 18 with Liberty Center. So...
Yeah, and I'm thinking, this week is a big one against Wauseon. So definitely, I think a lot of too with Archbold's schedule, that was a very front-loaded schedule. Yep. They played some tough teams to start. And I'm trying to think, I think their last game is at Patrick Henry.
Archbold, Wauseon, Patrick Henry, and Bryan.
Oh, and Bryan, I forgot about them. So they still have some tough teams to play to end the year, but Coach Dominic's doing good things over there for the Blue Streaks.
Yep.
Next game, Evergreen at Bryan. Bryan won this one 35-7. Halftime score was 21-7. Bryan, looking at total yards, Bryan had 474 yards, 358 rushing. Evergreen had 133 yards, 77 rushing. Looking at turnovers, Bryan had 1 with a fumble. Evergreen had 2, 1 interception and 1 fumble. Looking at key players from Bryan, running back Sam Harrell. This kid's a beast, 23 carries, 174 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown. He had 3 receptions for 48 receiving yards. Quarterback Jace Kepler, 10 of 17, good for 59%. 136 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns with 19 carries for 142 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown. And wide receivers Drew Hahn and Carter Dominic each had a touchdown reception apiece. Evergreen running back Max Mossing, 20 carries, 62 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown. And wide receiver Lane Vance had 1 reception for 56 receiving yards. Thoughts on the Evergreen at Bryan game?
Bryan, another team that you look up, they're 4-3, probably averaging 40 points a game.
Yeah.
So scoring is not a problem. At times defense is a problem. But again, Bryan, one of the better teams in the area.
I'm just going to say the same thing. Defensively, they're giving up a bunch of points as well, but they're scoring a bunch. So, they only scored 7 last week, and this week they only gave up 7. So maybe they're turning the corner there defensively.
Looking at their schedule, the only losses they've got are to Wert, Patrick Henry, and Liberty Center, some of the top teams in the area. Yep. So you can't really argue that they're, a bottom tier team or mid tier team. For all we know, they're up there quite a ways, but they're just playing really good competition.
Yeah, Wauseon and Archbold down the stretch. Those are the last two games. If I'm Wauseon and Archbold, I don't know that I'm going to be playing Brian.
Oh no, absolutely not.
So those will definitely be good games to see. So next game, looking at the Green Meadows Conference, Hicksville at Paulding. Paulding won this one 48-21, and this marks Paulding's third straight win, and that is actually the first 3-game win streak since 1997 for the Panthers. Looking at total yards, Panthers had 444 yards. So we talk about offenses in the area. I don't think you can necessarily count out the Paulding Panthers. Yeah. We've seen, I believe last week they had over 500 yards. This week, 444. Hicksville had 288 yards with 189 passing. Turnover battle, Paulding had one with a fumble. Hicksville had one with an interception. Looking at key players from Paulding, running back, linebacker, Kobe Ford. And I just want to take a minute to talk about this. I'm going to insert his highlight. There was a carry he had, and it was a run. I believe it was right up the middle. And he trucked a couple kids, and he broke like 4 or 5 tackles for a 50-yard rushing touchdown. And it was just unbelievable. May have been one of the most dominating runs that I've seen in a while. So excellent job. And that kid is hard to take down. He finished with 21 carries, 164 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns, 1 reception for 69 receiving yards. On defense, he had 13 tackles, 2 tackles for loss. He had a sack, and he had an interception. So he's a whole highlight reel for this game. Quarterback Colton Hunt, 18 of 34, 53%, 266 passing yards with 3 passing touchdowns. Wide receiver Blake Roanhouse, 6 receptions, 105 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. And my man Jack Woods, linebacker, 15 tackles, led the team with 3 tackles for loss. Looking at a couple key players from Hicksville, Brant Langham, 116 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown, and 1 rushing touchdown. And quarterback Garrett Turnbull, 12 of 18, 183 passing yards with 2 passing touchdowns. So thoughts on the Hicksville at Paulding game?
Just that little insert there about the first 3-game win streak since 1997. That's incredible. I mean, for the kids to they weren't even alive in 1997 to think it's been that long since Paulding's been able to put up this kind of a win streak. And they've got a great season going. Unfortunately, they do have 3 very, very tough games end the regular season here with Sonora, then Antwerp, and Wayne Trace. And if they can pull out a win against any of those 3, would be fantastic for their program going into next year.
Yeah, actually,
or even in the playoffs.
I think they need to win one of those 3, AJ, to actually get into the playoffs.
Oh, okay.
For advanced reading. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Friday night seeing Paulding.
I'm not.
And, no, right.
Being a Sonora fan, I'm not.
This was like we and Logan talked beforehand. This is one of those games. If you're a Ram fan, a Ram player, Ram coach, you cannot overlook the Paulding Panthers this Friday night. And those 2 defensive kids. I mean, Jack Woods also. We mentioned his game hard every week on here. Jack Woods. So yeah, it's going to be a battle, just like it was last week for Sonora.
I mean, they're scoring a lot of points in the wins. They're scoring a bunch of points, so they can throw some points on the board. Now, Sonora obviously is going to be looking to shut down 4, so he can't run the ball. But it's going to be an interesting game Friday night. I can tell you that right now. And everybody talks about how Paulding hits and their physical team. It's going to be very, very interesting because obviously we know Sonora's a physical team. So it could be about as exciting as last week.
Yep. Yeah, and I'll say right now, from watching Paulding in the past, Paulding is easily top 5, one of the most physical teams in Northwest Ohio. I mean, I'll say that right now, right off the bat. So excited to see what they bring to town. Couple games left here. Looking at Vanlue at Montpelier. Montpelier won this one 35-8. Montpelier was up 28-0 at halftime. Total yards, Montpelier had 313 with 199 passing. Vanlue 174 with 155 rushing. Turnovers, Montpelier had 1 with Vanlue having 1 fumble and Montpelier having 1 interception. Looking at key players for Montpelier, quarterback Hayden Sharps was 10 of 15, 199 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, 1 interception, and he actually set the single-season record for passing touchdowns. He currently has 16, and that broke Derek Lemon's single-season record of 12 back in 2000. Wide receiver Cam Smith, 4 receptions, 117 receiving yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. Running back linebacker Griffin Cooley, 9 carries, 75 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown, 1 reception for 31 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown. He also had 10 tackles on defense with 1 tackles for a loss. And then defensive lineman Eli Fackler had 10 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and 1 fumble recovery. So thoughts on the Vanlue at Montpelier game?
Yeah, Coach Robinson's got things rolling over there. We talked to him last week, and that's kind of neat that he's Hayden Sharps is only a sophomore, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
That's what he thought he said. So that's incredible. You got somebody who's already breaking records for the school as a sophomore. So things are looking up for Montpelier, I think. I mean, when you look at their schedule coming up, they're playing Northwood. They're going to have a tough one against Ottawa Hills probably, and then Hilltop. So they can definitely, I think, can get 2 out of the last 3 for sure. Not saying they can't beat Ottawa Hills, but that's going to be, I think that's the toughest game on the schedule.
Yep. Hey, we thought they didn't have a chance against Eden, honestly. It came down to a 2-point conversion. So Coach Robinson, it was nice of him to stop in last week. That was a heck of an interview that we had with him. If you missed it, you can go back and check it out. But, yeah, he has the boys playing sky high right now.
All right, just a couple games left here. We'll touch on them real quick. Northwood at Eden. Eden won this game 41-7. We didn't have a lot of stats from this, but we'll mention some key players. Quarterback Kyler Sapp was 30 of 49, 61%, 363 passing yards with 6 passing touchdowns, but he did have 2 interceptions. Wide receiver Kendall Briggle, 6 receptions, 101 receiving yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. Wide receiver Max Radabaugh, 8 receptions, 96 receiving yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. Linebacker Cohen Holbert, 6.5 tackles, 2 tackles for loss. He had half a sack with 1 interception and 2 quarterback hurries. And linebacker Cole Olds, 8.5 tackles, which led the team, half a tackle for loss and 1 quarterback hurry. So quick thoughts on the Northwood at Eden game.
Kyler Sapp just keeps on throwing the ball and throwing the ball and throwing the ball.
49 attempts.
49 times. It's a lot. I mean, that's almost like when you get into baseball, you get around to 49. Are they pulling the pitcher out at 49 pitches kind of thing? They're going to have to put in a limit.
Yeah. It's one of those teams you don't want to face coming up late in the season or even in the first or second round of the playoffs because you're basically going to throw every play.
Yeah, I'm looking at a couple interesting matchups. This week I believe they have Hilltop. Next week they play at Elmwood, so that could be interesting to see. And then their last game is at home against Ottawa Hills. So, you look 2 of the 3 definitely winnable, and possibly, I don't know, maybe they go out and compete against Ottawa Hills as well. So definitely interesting for the Eden Bombers.
Yep.
Last game here, looking at 8-man, and this was the big rivalry matchup between the 2 Northern 8 Conference teams in Northwest Ohio. And that would be Holgate at Stryker, and Holgate won this one huge, 80-20. Total yardage, Holgate had 500 with Stryker having 157 turnover battle. Holgate had 1 with a fumble. Stryker had 1 with an interception. Key players from Holgate, quarterback, defensive back, Xavier McCord, 8 of 15, 84 passing yards with 6 passing touchdowns, which I had to look at that again because he had only 84 passing yards but had 6 passing touchdowns.
Oh, he only had 8 completions with 6 touchdowns.
8 completions, too. Yeah, that too. And 10 carries for 192 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. He had 8 total touchdowns for the game. He had a blocked punt. He had a sack. He had a tackle for loss on defense. So doing it all. Wide receiver Dylan Boker, 6 receptions, 53 receiving yards, 6 receiving touchdowns, which that's unreal. Zach Boker, 5 of 7, 68 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, 4 carries for 31 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. So thoughts on the rivalry game here?
Xavier McCord has to be the most exciting kid in this area. 8-man nonetheless, but still, he put up numbers game after game after game after game. There just makes you have a double, triple look. Like, am I reading this right?
They're video game numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's definitely, like I said, for 8-man, definitely has to be in the competition for Player of the Year.
For sure.
They scored 6 touchdowns in their first quarter.
That's crazy.
Holgate scored 6 touchdowns in the first quarter alone.
Talk about a high-powered offense. Holy smokes.
And then scored 4 more in the second.
Yeah, coach.
I mean, that's one of those things where you're like, oh, come on. You're up 80, right? And you start looking, you go, man, when you're up 40 in the first quarter, it's kind of hard to pull the boys out and say, hey, go sit the bench. Cause
that's crazy.
Yeah, 68-20 at halftime.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
Coach Wagner over there has got these guys playing fantastic.
Yeah, and especially to win a game like this, I know that it's a big rivalry game between the two. So excellent job by the Tigers. Unfortunately, I didn't have the stats for Stryker, but Stryker's got to keep their heads up because they've got a lot of good kids on their ball team as well. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to take a break to hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
3Chord is a family-owned and operated business who offers the highest quality embroidery, screen printing, sign and promotional items to customers of Northwest Ohio at competitive prices. Locations in Archbold, Napoleon, and Bowling Green. Check them out at 3chord.com. That's THREECORD.com. BSN Sports is your go-to business for purchasing uniforms, equipment, spiritwear, and anything else your athletic program needs, giving you more time to impact lives on the field. With over 1,200 sales professionals who live, work, and serve in your community, we are always just a short drive or phone call away. Be sure to give your local sales rep and Jim Garris a call for any of your athletic supply needs. We're back on the NWO Sports Podcast, and we are to the Coach's Corner segment of the podcast. And this week we have head coach of the North Central Eagles joining us, and Coach Scott Thompson. Thanks for coming on, Coach.
I appreciate you asking me to be on here tonight and have an opportunity to talk about the Eagle football program.
All right, well, we'll get things started here. Coach, let's start off talking about this season. We're in week 8 of the season, and tell us how the season has gone so far.
I think it's gone relatively well for us. We're in our second varsity season of football. So obviously we're in a state of infancy. But we've got growth pains. We're trying to get better at the things that we know are fundamentals, and I think that's an important thing for our program. We're currently 6-1 on the season. We're very happy with that. Being the 8th game of the season coming up here this week. We've got a tough opponent coming up with Cincinnati College Prep Academy, but our kids, I think, have accepted the challenge, and we're looking forward to it.
Coach, you've got a star player in Joey Burt. On the offensive side of the ball, how are things going, and how has he really contributed at the running back position?
Well, Joe's a very fine athlete, but more importantly, he's a very fine individual. He's a very good leader for the football team. And he's just one of 10 seniors that we have on the team. And I think all the seniors have done an outstanding job this year, along with Joe, leading the team and filling in their particular positions. I've had all these kids for 5 years. I started working with them when they were 8th graders, and so we've been using the same systems offensively and defensively for those 5 years. So they've had an opportunity to grow in the system, and we've actually allowed the system to evolve around them as well. So it's Joe, once again, very fine athlete, but Joe understands also that as a running back, he's not going to get any yardage unless our linemen do a good job blocking for him.
Right.
And he also does an outstanding job as a defensive linebacker for us.
That was the next thing, is talking about the defensive side of the ball. How are things looking for you?
Well, every week we face a new giant. And we've always talked to the kids from that aspect, and I think we've done a pretty good job defensively this year, other than the Parkway game, which got out of hand for us. We gave up 6 points to Woodmore. We gave up 3 points to Fremont, Indiana. We shot out Hilltop. Gave up 6 points to the Vanlue, or the Cardinal Stritch, that is. And some of those games we had JV players in third and fourth quarter. So, some of these points are being given up against our JVs. Vanlue, we gave up 16 points. Schroeder, we gave up 6 points, and that was a punt return for a touchdown. So we shut them out offensively. So I think defensively our team has done a very good job. Hopefully we can keep it up for the next 3 games.
All right, Coach, I'm going to open it up questions to a couple of the other guys here. So whoever wants to ask Coach the next question.
You guys have an independent schedule. You're kind of like the Notre Dame of high school football right now. Are you guys looking to potentially join a conference in the area at all?
We have been trying to join a conference ever since I've been at North Central. We've tried getting into the TAC, and they have their own reasons, the member schools, why they don't vote us in. We tried getting into the Tri-County Conference, which is a conference just across the Ohio-Michigan border. And we did not get voted in there. It's not that we're not. It's the issue is not that we're not trying to get into a conference. We're just trying to find one that'll accept us and vote us in. And they all have their own reasons as to why they. One of the biggest reasons we hear, they're concerned about the stability of our program. But if you take a look at our program, our numbers have grown every year. And this year we've got 27 players, 9 through 12 in our program. Our junior high program has been solid for 4 or 5 years now. We've got 19 to 20 kids, 7th and 8th grade playing. So, I mean, the stability is there. Our facilities have been made tremendous gains in our facilities. We got lights. We got our home side bleachers installed this year for the first time. We got brand new scoreboard. So our facilities are very good for a small school. And so, from a standpoint of, your question is, are you trying to get it? Yes, we've been trying, but you'd have to ask the other schools why they're not voting us in.
Yeah, I can understand the frustration there at building up a new program and trying to get involved in the bigger conferences, and I wish you luck on that. I did have a follow-up question here, a second question. I know you guys play a lot of long-distance games. What's the farthest game you guys have traveled to in the last 2 years here, and how has the community around you guys helped you make this possible?
Well, our scheduling has been a real problem because we're not in a conference, and so the open dates that we've had have been traditionally conference game dates for other opponents. So, when you're looking for a week 6, week 7 game, those are typically being filled within conferences. So, being independent, which is not anything we really want to do, we want our kids to be able to compete for a conference championship in football. Our football is the only sport in our school where we don't compete for a conference championship. We would like to have our kids have the capability of competing for earning recognition on conference, all conference teams. But we can't, right now we're not in a conference, so our kids can't do that, whereas they can do that in other sports. We understand the disadvantage that we're at. From a standpoint of long-distance games, we're forced to do that because we haven't had any success scheduling games in our area. And so last year we played a game at Don Paul Stadium in Fremont, Ohio, and they were very hospitable, treated us very well. And we played another game, long-distance game, played New Lebanon Dixie down at Wapakoneta Stadium. Just this past Friday, we played Cincinnati Schroeder High School at Versailles High School in their stadium. And this Friday, we'll play Cincinnati College Prep Academy at Allen East High School Stadium. So when you have to schedule long-distance games, one of the things we try to do is find a neutral site so fans have an equal opportunity to get to the game and watch. And our community has been very supportive. Our Eagle football boosters have done an outstanding job of supporting us financially and renting facilities for us. And, the parents clubs that are helping us out, feeding the team prior to the trip and having food ready for the kids after the game is over with. And sometimes they're coming in Saturday mornings and bring breakfast into us. So, we've got some great support groups that help us out, and they've all been super.
Yeah, Coach, awesome. And I just want to make a quick point, too. And I want to say, too, your fans and your community are very passionate about North Central football program, and I absolutely love it because we have fans that reach out to us almost on a weekly basis, but how excited they are for, North Central football and how passionate they are. And that's just awesome to see. And you guys are doing an excellent job there. I just want to say at, building a program up, like you said, you guys have built this program up from scratch, and it's just amazing to see where you guys are going and just where you guys continue to grow as you move on with things. So excellent job for you guys.
Yeah, speaking of that, Coach Thompson, tell us a little bit about how the program came to be. Obviously, you didn't just have a sign-up sheet and kids show up. Like, was there a process, like through the past 4, 5, 6 years, building up 2 years, second year of varsity football?
Prior to me arriving at North Central, there was a group of parents that basically got together and said, hey, we would like to have football at our school. And many of these parents are seniors' parents. And so they, I think, basically got together and started our kids' third grade up through sixth grade into youth programs. I believe the senior class from last year was probably the first class that got started in youth football. And I know just from conversation I've had with parents in the community, I may not know all the facts about it, but what I've heard is they spent time playing in youth programs in Montpelier, Ohio. They spent time playing in youth programs in Fremont, Indiana. And we have a strong relationship, I believe, with both those communities, and they were very instrumental in the development of our program. And then our youth program, which is, once again, third grade through sixth grade. We're part of a flag football tackle bar program that, we play teams from Archbold, Wauseon, and the like. So every year we have a bunch of kids that participate in that. And then when they're done with sixth grade, we're always looking for them to move into our interscholastic programs, 7th and 8th grade junior high football, and then up to our high school program.
Yeah, Coach, it's been exciting to watch you guys play and or listen to you guys. Like Coach Logan said, your fans are pretty passionate about your guys' program. And, when you guys take those trips, I guess I'm just kind of curious, do you guys have a late start, or you guys get out of school early, or how do you guys do that?
Well, I'll give you an example. Friday's game, we had to drive down to Versailles. That was over a 2-hour drive, and our kids get out of school at 2:50, and we were on the bus at 3.
Wow.
And there was, as far as I know, there was no early release. I got there at about I got to the locker room at about 2:30, and we're getting the kids around, getting their stuff in their bags, and loading up a cargo trailer with their equipment, and we get on the bus and we take off. It's a school bus ride, and we got kids lying in the aisles on the way coming home, sleeping in the aisle. And so,
I was gonna say, it probably makes for a late night getting home too.
Yeah, I mean, we're quite accustomed to doing this type of thing, and like I said, it's not ideal, but we work through it, and we're a close knit football family, and so we're just happy we're able to play football, and most of the fathers that are in our community, they didn't have that opportunity. They can. So I think they're very appreciative of the fact that their sons have had a chance to do it.
That's good, and obviously you're getting to play at some real nice stadiums too. I mean, some of the stadiums you traveled to are pretty nice stadiums. Yeah,
and I coached at Fremont Ross for a year. This was years ago. I was a defensive tackle coach, and it was quite an experience. Coaching there and being part of that program has had a lot of storied, historically fantastic players come out of that program. And so going back to that stadium last year and seeing all the improvements that they made to the facility, received a lot of money donated to them, and sunk a lot of money into the facilities, and it really is a fantastic place. Wapakoneta Stadium was really nice too. the interesting thing about being in Versailles in their stadium this past Friday is the tremendous tradition that they have there. I mean, they had about 6, 7, 8 plaques in their locker room of state championship football teams. And just to see the tradition that they have there in playing in the Mighty Mac, it's a bit of an inspirational thing for you. And we were actually able to use the home side locker facility and actually see a football locker room that has real football lockers in it, which we, that's one of the areas that I think we're going to see some improvement in within the next year or two. But that was a fantastic opportunity for us. And so everybody's treated us very well. Every place we've gone to, their athletic departments have been very professional, and we're looking forward to the same thing at Allen East this coming Friday.
Just a couple of questions to wrap things up here, Coach. One question here is, where would you like to see your team grow and improve in the next couple of games of the regular season? You guys made a playoff run last year. I'm sure you're prepping for another playoff run this year, or trying to. Where would you like to see some growth in your team?
I think a big area that we always need to work on, obviously we continue to work on our execution of, fundamentals. We talk to the kids about 3ET. 3ET is effort, execution, enthusiasm, and toughness. And those are the 4 areas that we're constantly preaching to the kids, executing with intensity, playing with enthusiasm, being tough mentally and physically, and having 100% effort everything that we do. And so we're constantly talking to kids about 3ET, and that's something I introduced to these kids 5 years ago, and we've kept that going. I think a big area that we need to work on right now, continue to work on, is not shooting ourselves in the foot, keeping our mistakes to a minimum, keeping our penalties to a minimum. We had a pretty good game this past Friday as far as keeping penalties to a minimum and eliminating mistakes, turnovers, that type of thing. And I think that's just an area that we have to continue to work on, not shooting ourselves in the foot, playing smart. And if we can continue to do that, keep our mistakes to a minimum, and follow through with our 3ET, I think we'll be just fine.
All right, Coach, the last question I have for you is, you match up this week against a good Cincinnati college prep school, and like you said, too, I believe that game's being played at Allen East. What are your thoughts on Cincinnati college prep, and what are some keys that will allow you guys to achieve a win this week?
Well, they're a real good football team, and they're 5-1 right now. They 2 weeks ago they beat Schroeder, who we had beat just this past Friday. Both those teams are loaded with athletic talent. They've got size, they've got speed, an abundance of speed. And Cincinnati College Prep Academy has got really good depth. They're a real solid running team. They also play a very stout defense. And so if we want to be competitive against them, we always talk about controlling the line of scrimmage. We have to control the line of scrimmage, both offensively and defensively. If we can control the line of scrimmage, and we can contain their skilled athletes, and break a few plays on them, we feel we've got a chance to win the football game, or any football game that we play. So those are always typical keys to our game, and obviously we've got to play one of our best games and keep our mistakes to a minimum. If we can do those things, I think we'll be okay.
All right, Coach. Well, I just want to thank you for taking time out of your busy week to join us tonight. And I also want to say you guys are doing an excellent job there at North Central.
like we talked about with the whole conference thing, and you guys are facing a lot of adversity, but to see like the passion from the players, from the community, you guys really have a good thing going there, and we wish you the best of luck with everything, and we'll definitely be supporting you throughout your whole journey as a football program. So good luck this Friday, and good luck the rest of the season.
I thank you much. Appreciate the opportunity to talk about our football program, and we look forward to talking to you again.
All right.
Yeah, thanks, Coach Thompson.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break to hear from our sponsors.
For any of your auto body or collision needs, be sure to check out Bat & Stevens Body Shop, voted the #1 body shop in Northwest Ohio by Crescent News readers. Give them a call today at 419-497-3111 to schedule your free estimate. Check out Sonora Rams Live. Live events broadcast on YouTube and post-game results, articles, schedules, and more can all be found on TenoraRams.com. Feel free to look up their Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram pages as well. Fairchild Family Chiropractic aims to help families to get better together in the least invasive way possible. Dr. Fairchild focuses on the neck using the Blair technique and Palmer package, adjusting to correct spinal misalignments. Located in Defiance, Ohio, call Dr. Fairchild today at 419-576-5070 to schedule an appointment.
We're back on the NWO Sports Podcast, and we're looking at Player of the Week from Week 7, and we have a ton of good athletes and performances, so we'll read the list of some different nominations, and then we'll kind of go from there. So I'm going to read the list, and let's hear them. North Central running back Joey Burt, and I'll read his stat line since we didn't have stats. 34 carries, 300 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. He was 2 of 3 passing, and he had a passing touchdown. Liberty Center running back Colton Cruz, Tenora quarterback Dominic Graziani, Antwerp quarterback Carson Altimus, Antwerp wide receiver Landon Brewer, Fairview quarterback William Zedike, Fairview wide receiver Logan Ollinger, Edgerton quarterback Maddox Baker, Edgerton wide receiver defensive back Scotty Krantz, wide receiver and defensive back from Wauseon Tyson Rodriguez, Wauseon quarterback Trey Parsons, Archbold quarterback Cade Brenner, Archbold wide receiver Jack Hurst, Bryan quarterback Jace Kepler, Paulding running back linebacker Kobe Four, Montpelier quarterback Hayden Sharps, Montpelier wide receiver Cam Smith, and Holgate quarterback defensive back Xavier McCord. So, guys, who was a player in the area that you were looking at for Player of the Week?
I was kind of looking around Hayden Sharps, throwing 10 for 15, which is a pretty good completion percentage. Almost 200 yards passing with 4 touchdowns. That's a pretty good stat for Hayden Sharps. I was also kind of surprised not to see Jack Woods on here with 15 tackles, a couple tackles for loss, and I know you like talking about him, Logan.
Yeah, no, he had a good performance, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of good athletes in Northwest Ohio, so we got to make this list somewhat narrow, because if not, if we had the choice, we could probably put 50 kids on here every week, but we got to narrow it down a little bit. So.
Yeah, I had a couple guys that I'd like to discuss, but Archbold wide receiver Jack Hurst, he kind of was like the jack of all trades. Play on the name there, but rushing for a touchdown, receiving a touchdown, and then a punt return for a touchdown. But my thought is also Xavier McCord. After we looked at the stats, throwing 6 touchdowns in the first quarter, just unbelievable night for him.
Well, since my buddy Houston Miranda didn't make the list this week, I got to go off the tracks a bit. There's a lot of good performances on here. But again, not being a homer here, but for me, Dominic Graziani, that last drive, stepping up big, offensively, taking the Rams down the field, huge score, big rivalry game. And then when Ayersville has the ball with a chance to come down and win, he picks it off to end the game. So just like in a lightning bolt, Dominic Graziani offensively and defensively pretty much ended the game for Sonora.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, all great performances, but the guy that got it done and who's going to win Player of the Week for Week 7 for NWO Sports, that would be North Central running back Joey Burt. When you have 34 carries, you rush the ball for 300 yards, 4 rushing touchdowns, you throw a passing touchdown too, throw that into the mix. Pretty impressive performance. And we just got off the phone earlier with Coach Scott Thompson. They're doing great things at North Central, and Joey's a huge contributor to that team. So Joey Burt from North Central running back is going to win our Week 7 Player of the Week, brought to you by BSN Sports, and they will receive NWO Sports gear courtesy of BSN Sports. So again, we thank BSN and their strong support for all the athletes and all the schools in Northwest Ohio. They really do a great job. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to move on to the next segment. We're looking at power rankings for Week 8. And boy, do we have a shakeup, because there's some things that are really shaking themselves out here in the last part of the season. So let's go ahead and we're going to roll through here. Starting at number 25, we're looking at Swanton. 24, Hilltop. 23, Hicksville. 22, Edgerton. 21, Fairview. 20, Evergreen. Thoughts on this group here?
No, just happy that Fairview picked up that first win. Got out of that 0 for column.
All right, let's look at the next group here. Coming in at number 19, Delta. 18, OttawaGranger. 17, Montpelier. 16, North Central. 15, Patrick Henry.
Dropped them a long way.
Yeah, that's like you said, that's unfortunate for Patrick Henry. Hopefully, Coach he's got all the worlds of experience in handling situations like this. Maybe not to the extreme of this, but it's just a tough blow for Patrick Henry. So
I don't know that I drop him all the way to 15 though. That's a tough blow. I mean, I understand that he's a big part of their offense, but I think I give them at least one more week to see what they can pull out before I drop them all the way to 15.
Yeah, I think the thing with Patrick Henry is, though, their bread and butter was that pass game. I know, and it's a good thing that they've developed the run game this year, and they can actually do that with the running back Houston Miranda. They got a couple. Their offensive line is pretty good as well. But man, at the end of the day, I think if you're Patrick Henry, you're going to have to do something and adapt to your offense, because there's no way you can go out and you can sling the ball like you're used to when you're missing a guy like Nash Meyer. So it's definitely going to be tough for the Patriots. But, I'm curious to see how they bounce back this week and what the game plan is, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So let's look at the next group here. 14, Paulding. 13, Wayne Trace. 12, Eden. 11, Ayersville. Will save the top 10.
Yeah, no complaints whatsoever. Oh, Wayne Trace has to be probably one of the better 4-3 teams in the area.
Yeah, I think too. They just got done, and then they played Antwerp to the wire, and that was a game that we said even going into the week that Wayne Trace would have a shot at winning, and sure enough, they did. They brought them right down, and they were unable to get it. And actually, I believe their record should be 3 and 4.
3 and 4.
Yeah, looking at that. So 3 and 4. But nonetheless, and Eden's doing Eden things. They're going to put themselves in a great position, obviously for playoffs, and they may make some noise there as well. And then looking at Ayersville, really that Tenor-Ayersville game could have been anyone's game. Yep. So sitting right there at 11.
Yeah, Ayersville has the biggest chance to make the biggest leap this week.
All right, looking at the top 10, cracking the top 10 is Tenora, number 9, Bryan, 8, Napoleon, 7, Wauseon, 6, Van Wert.
Yeah, looks good. I think Napoleon has a chance to ease up close to the top 5 before season's end.
Yeah, honestly, I know Napoleon's got a losing record and they're in the top 10, but again, we talk about some of these records are deceiving because Napoleon's played a tough schedule and they're really playing some good football right now. So, and you look at it, Napoleon actually played Bryan in a scrimmage and to start the year, and they dominated that pretty well. So, I mean, that you kind of look at head-to-head matchups when you're comparing teams for this ranking, and Napoleon's definitely got that edge. So
that can be said for Tenor as well. Looking at them, they're 4-3. 3 of their losses are to Liberty Center at 1, Archbold at 3, and Antwerp at 4. So
very true.
all three of their losses are the top 4 teams, according to our power rankings. So
and in all sense of the word, if they pull out the win this week against Paulding, they've got Hicksville and Edgerton to finish out the season. So I mean, very well to pull out to run the gamut here at the end.
I think the Rams, as we talked off camera earlier, the Rams have a pretty good chance of actually hosting a playoff game. They got to win. Like I said, don't overlook this week, but that's a whole nother subject.
And we'll get into that later for our predictions. But and that leads into our next one. Our top 5 coming in at number 5 is Columbus Grove, 4 Antwerp, 3 Archbold, 2 Defiance, and 1 Liberty Center.
Yeah, I guess I kind of spilled the beans on that one a little early, but steal your thunder a little bit. Liberty Center is setting up number 1. That's not even a question in my eyes. 2, 3, 4, kind of a toss-up with those teams, really. Antwerp and Archbold sitting right behind Defiance is, I guess, probably a good spot for them.
Antwerp set at 7-0. Arguably one of the better teams in the area. I would love to see them match up against Defiance Archbold. I'd just like to see that game. That would be a game to see how good Antwerp really is. You know what I mean? It's just go out there and play some big dog and see where you match up, which they will in the playoffs. So they'll play good teams, but not an Archbold or a Defiance. But so the Antwerp guys are probably going to say, "Oh, you're disrespecting us. We're undefeated." But I put you against Defiance or Archbold.
That could be
I don't know.
similar to a PHLC outcome there.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Antwerp, goes out there and does the business and takes care. I don't know. It would be interesting to see a matchup like that, though.
And another point, I look at the rankings. You see 1 Liberty Center, 2 Defiance, 3 Archbold. There's a huge gap between.
Huge.
I'm not dissing on Defiance, but Liberty Center's scrimmage Defiance, and I heard how that scrimmage went, and there's a huge gap between Liberty Center and the rest of the pack in Northwest Ohio because
definitely
Liberty Center is dominating everyone, and I don't see anyone in sight. Honestly, probably till Liberty gets to, I would say, the regional finals, till they face someone that can actually put up a fight against them.
Well, like I said, I went back and watched the game. I went back and watched a little bit of the PH game, went back and watched a little bit of the Bryan game. Total dominance. Just like you said, there's a big gap between the top and the next one there. Yep. Liberty Center's playing lights out right now.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and take a break to hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Crystal Vasquez of Amerimaid Realty is a top real estate agent in Northwest Ohio. Crystal's compassion and enthusiasm allow her to find that special property or house just for you. Located in Bryan, Ohio, give her a call today at 419-799-1243. Jimenez Basketball Academy strives to create an atmosphere to cultivate basketball fundamentals in Northwest Ohio youth athletes, offering one-on-one sessions, group sessions, speed and agility training, and much more. Located in Pettisville, Ohio, call Coach Jesse today at 419-551-8105. The Drop Zone Pizzeria is the #1 voted pizza restaurant in the region. Check them out for pizza, wings, subs, and more. Located in Ayersville and Stryker, or ask them about their traveling food trailer. Optimal Performance Fitness is your go-to gym in Northwest Ohio, providing group fitness classes, personal training, and sports performance sessions for area athletes. Located in Napoleon, Ohio, give them a call today at 419-438-7265.
We're back on the NWO Sports Podcast, and we are to the hot takes presented by BSN Sports. And again, these are sent in from the fans, and we're going to discuss some hot takes going on in Northwest Ohio. So let's look at the first one here. Someone sent in Liberty Center's last competition is Wauseon, but they should have the NWO OAL in the bag. I don't even really think this one's a hot take, to be honest. This is just a good talking point as we were kind of continuing on from the power rankings. I don't see anyone else getting in Liberty Center's way. We did find out, I found out the team really that's going to, if they match up, put up a competition, is that Perry team. Everyone's been kind of talking about this Perry team, which is in Division 5 that can give Liberty Center a run for their money. But as far as Wauseon's got a good ball team, but Liberty Center's another beast, and they've got a good thing going on. So, guys, thoughts on this one here?
In my opinion, Liberty Center playing Wauseon, Liberty Center is going to have to spin the car out of control and crash into a tree for them to even have a chance. But I just think Wauseon, like you said, they got a good ball club, but they're not going to match up Liberty Center in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
not the way they're playing right now, anyway.
It says it's the last competition is Wauseon. I don't even know if I would say that. They're going to walk all over Wauseon after seeing what they did to Patrick Henry and Archbold, for that matter. I don't think there's even a chance that Wauseon comes away with a win on this one.
Yeah, and I'll just add this other point so we can throw it in there. The other one was, hate to say it, LC is a state contender, and this was sent in, I believe, by someone who's played Liberty Center too. So I 110% believe. I know last year everyone thought that was the year for Liberty Center. Mm-hmm. I don't know. They look pretty darn good this season, and we were just talking off air. When Liberty Center comes into the 2023 season, you look, they lose guys like running back Matthew Hoare, stud at running back. They lose stud linebacker, first-team All-Ohio player in Owen Box, who's at Findlay now playing football. Excellent player. They lose starting quarterback Zane Zeider, a heck of an athlete. That kid goes out, and we watched him in the playoffs. That kid, he took the offense under his wing, and he was just a true winner. If you were going to tell me in 2023 that Liberty Center was going to be better, I would have said you're joking, right? Like, how is that even possible? But what Liberty Center does best is they're a football town. They repeat year after year after year, and they continue with depth. We talked about the other point we were making, how detrimental the loss of Nashmeyer is to Patrick Henry. We said for some reason if Liberty Center were to lose like a top running back to injury or something like that, would that have the same effect as Nashmeyer going down for Liberty or for Patrick Henry? And we said, honestly, I don't know, because one guy goes down for Liberty Center, the next guy steps up, and there's the talent that's backing up those starters. They could probably go to any other school in Northwest Ohio and be a starter. I mean, that's the thing. So
Yeah, like you always watching those games, and like I said, we were talking off air. Just you watch them rotate guys in. Just they're always keeping a fresh set of legs in there. It's just they're gonna be tough.
And that's one thing about Liberty Center with them having such depth. It just forces those stars to be better because they're replaceable. If you don't try 110% every single week, all right, we'll throw the next guy in. So you're constantly forced to excel and do everything you possibly can to make each week better. And it shows. When you got that kind of depth, you start putting in programs like Liberty Center. And talking about them being a state contender, I pulled up Drew Pasture's Fantastic 50. He's actually got them marked about 27% chance to win Division 5 state. With Perry being the next one sitting at 18% chance, and the list goes on. But right now they're kind of the favorite according to Drew Pastures.
Keith, what's going on in your mind over there?
Man, I think you guys pretty much said everything I was thinking. I mean, plus we talk about Riley Chappa at the wide receiver position. Last year we saw that kid make acrobatic catch after acrobatic catch. Plus he's a pretty solid defensive back.
Yeah, and the one Hammondtree
from tight end. I mean,
the list goes on and on of guys that they left, and we're not meaning to leave
No, but if you would have told us Liberty Center graduates XXXXX and X, and then fast forward to week 8, and you said, yeah, that team's going to be better than or equal to that team was in 2022, we would have called you crazy. But here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
We're talking about it. So,
and the crazy thing with all of this is I feel like I'm kind of glad we're talking about Liberty Center. I feel like we've barely even covered them because every game they've played has been a blowout. Yeah. There's nothing to talk about. Right. So I kind of compared schedules and results from last year to this year. And obviously, teams are different every year. But to see last year, they played Otsego. That game was, I believe, like a 9-point game. I think they won at 9-0 or something like that. There was other games that were within 1-2 scores last year. This year, like I said before, there has not been a single game that's been close. Their closest game has been Sonora. That was week 1 that I believe they won by 21 points. Yep. So it's just unreal of the dominance they've had this season.
Yeah, it blows my mind when you look back at that Sonora game, how well Sonora did against Liberty Center in the first half of that game. You're like, wow. And they're just blowing everybody else out of the water.
Yeah, we talked about Sonora was marching down the field to actually go up 21-7 when they fumbled or had an interception or something. That was right before the half. Yeah. And then after that turnover, it was lights out. It's like Liberty Center just pulled the curtain down and it's like, let's go.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it, Sonora was in the lead.
Yeah. Right.
Yep. And could have scored again. But man, oh man, can you imagine? I mean, step back and think, guys. What if Liberty Center's lone loss was the Sonora Rams? And you look at Sonora now, and you're just like, really? And Liberty Center's just blowing everybody else out of the water and thinking that Sonora actually, I mean, they had them on the ropes, to be honest with you, in the first half. Yeah. I mean, they had them on the ropes.
I had to, I'm just kind of thinking of this too. We watched that first game of the season, and Liberty Center comes out. And they're like, I don't know, a Chevy Silverado, a work truck. They go into the game. They take care of business. There were some things here and there. I don't know, maybe their shocks or suspension was, working things out. The ball was on the ground. But now it's been like a Lamborghini. You got that big old engine in there. That thing's flying down the highway. And no one has even come close to them. So I don't know. Hats off to Liberty Center, Coach Moeller and the staff, because they are doing phenomenal. And all I got to say is I'm excited to follow them through the playoffs.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, let's move on to the next hot take. Paulding just has to get one more win to make the playoffs. They end up doing it. And then we'll throw in the follow-up hot take that someone else sent in. Paulding beats Sonora, too close to call with Antwerp, and dogs Wayne Trace and makes the playoffs. So let's start with that first point. Keith, what's the thoughts? Because I know you have Drew Pasture's website pulled up.
Honestly, Paulding needs to win at least one game of these next 3 unofficially to actually make the playoffs.
Okay.
So, according to the site that Logan's been talking about for the last couple of weeks, Drew Pasture, they have Paulding finishing at 5-5, and if they do finish at 5-5, they will not make the playoffs.
Wow.
They'll be on the outside looking in at number 17. That's if. You still have 3 more weeks to play it, and there's a lot of numbers that go into all this. But as of the numbers that are inputted as of right now, and everything plays out the way that should, which never does, then Paulding will need at least one win of their final 3 games to actually make the playoffs.
Which, like we talked a little while ago, they've got to gauntlet here as far as GMC goes with Sonora, Antwerp, and then Wayne Trace. To come away with a win on any of those 3 games, honestly, would be a great thing for their program, let alone going to playoffs.
Yeah, and you look to right now, looking at Joe Itel. So Paulding sits in Division 6, Region 22. That's the same region as Sonora. And Sonora sits number 8 currently in the point standings. Paulding is at number 15, so 16 teams get in per region. Yep. There are a lot of computer points this week. If Paulding can pull out,
huge.
like you said, Keith, if they could pull out either against Sonora or Wayne Trace, which I think are more likely than maybe an Antwerp, that's a lot of computer points. But I'm looking at their schedule too, and obviously there's a reason why they're 5-2 and they're sitting at number 15. They played Swanton. They haven't won a single game, so you're not getting any second round points for that. They played Spencerville, a 2-5 team, or they lost to Spencerville, a 2-5 team. Jefferson's an 0-7 team, so those 0-7 teams are not helping you. You don't get any additional points.
They played Fairview and Edgerton.
Yeah,
Hicksville.
If they would have beat Ayersville's 5-2, that would have been a lot of points.
That's a huge points right there.
And I'm just going through their schedule. Fairview is a 1-win team, 1-6. Edgerton 1-6. Hicksville 1-6. So that's the thing that's kind of their downfall is some of the games that they needed to win the Ayersville game or even at least the Spencerville game, and that would have really kind of helped them as well. But I truly do. I think Paulding takes one of those teams for sure because Paulding is a much improved team and they're unlike anything else. And I think one of these 3 teams, if not more, I'm not saying that they can't.
They can.
I don't think that they take them serious. And we kind of talked about that this week with Sonora, that Paulding's always been that team in the past, it's just Paulding, this and that. But we've seen Paulding over the years, especially since they've joined the GMC, they just get better and better and better. And like I said, too, their team is one of the most physical teams in Northwest Ohio. And I remember the first year, and I talked to my brother Bryce when he was playing Paulding, when Bryce played at Sonora, and Bryce even said, like, that team hits hard, and they were the hardest hitting team, and they made Sonora at the time made a playoff run. Bryce said they were hit harder than any of the other playoff teams. So, I mean, that's saying a lot what goes on over at Paulding. So
I'm sure that's the point of emphasis this week by Coach Becker and his staff is just stay focused. Don't overlook Paulding. Just don't.
I'm gonna back up. I'm gonna be that guy. You guys know me. I know you guys are all on the Paulding bandwagon, and you're just saying that Paulding. And don't get me wrong. I think Paulding is a good team, but I'm not on that train. All right, I'm not on that train. They beat Swanton, who, like you said, hasn't won a game. They played Fairview, Edgerton, and Hicksville, who have a combined. So those 4 teams, 4 out of the 5 wins are from teams that have a combined win, three wins. Paulding looks good, but guys, I mean, other than Ayersville, and I really do think they should have won that game when you look back at it. But they had to lead at halftime, I believe, in that game, and. I don't know. I don't think Paulding is as good as you think they are. I think when they come up against a team like Sonora, Antwerp, and Wayne Trace, I think they're going to show their true colors.
Fair points. And I was just going to say, coming from a guy that I started off on this Paulding Panthers train. I was choo-chooing my horn. I hopped off the Paulding Panthers train, because they lost a game. But man, I'm sold on the Paulding Panthers, and I think that Coach Jim Menzie, I think they're doing great things. I truly do. I know those kids, they're so excited right now. This is probably the most excitement the Paulding Panthers have had in their program in probably, 15, 20 years. I don't know.
Longer, right?
I don't even know the last time that Paulding's had a winning record. That'd be something curious we'll have to look up.
I'd say it was 99 since they've won 3 in a row.
3 in a row. So that community is excited, and there's some big games coming up, and I think they have all the momentum in the world right now, and I think they're really going to make some noise. AJ, you're going to say something too?
Yeah, I just want to make one quick comment here before we move on. Paulding and Wayne Trace is a big rivalry game.
I know. I was going to say.
And if there's a game that Paulding is going to come out with a win, I think it's going to be that one. Not because they may be the better team or the worst team or whatever. I think it's just because of the rivalry. I think Paulding can gain a little momentum coming into that. Now, they do play Wayne Trace at Wayne Trace, so that's going to hurt them a little bit as far as home field advantage. But that would be the game I would look out if I was in the GMC is if they're going to squeak out another win, it might be that game.
Yeah, that was my thing. Those out of those last 3 games, Sonora and Wayne Trace are on the road, and then they're playing Antwerp at home, so they're playing the big dogs at home. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, obviously that's why you line them up every Friday night and play them, because you never know what's going to happen. And it's just as like with Ayersville and Sonora this past week, you never know what's going to happen.
And I want to say too, that Paulding Wayne Trace game, that may be one of the best games of the year, honestly. With the way that both teams go out and compete, we've seen Wayne Trace. They've lost a couple close ones, but you know what you're going to get out of the Raiders each week. They're going to take you down to the wire. Sonora, they went down to the wire. Antwerp, they went down to the wire. Same thing with Paulding. Those are 2 teams that have a strong rivalry, and they're going to go out there and compete. So that's definitely a game I'm going to keep my eyes on coming up in the future.
2008, Logan was the last time they were finished.
2008?
500 or above. Yes.
Wow. And what was the record in 2008?
6-4.
Okay. So, man, that's been what, 2008, 23?
This freaking stat guy, dude. I tell you
about
what,
15
I don't know
years.
where you find all this stuff, Keith, but man, you don't need a stat guy.
We'll talk about that here in a bit.
All right. Let's move on to the next hot take. The next one is the last drive of the Sonora-Ayersville game has to be one of the best in the series. And we've discussed this a little bit earlier in the podcast, but honestly, I think it is. I don't know of any other games, and even in recent years, I don't know of any that have been real close. But this game, literally, it could have gone either way. This was just a classic rivalry game, a lot of emotion, a lot of hard hitting, and it really came down. And it was almost kind of movie-esque in terms of Dominic Graziani, quarterback from the Rams, leading the Rams down the field. Again, it is like a movie. The Rams were down to 4th and 1, and all of a sudden they got to get this big first down to keep the drive moving. And seriously,
and he literally escapes by his shirt. I mean, he just
it is literally like it was you were watching
away from being tackled.
Yes. They drove down the field. They ended up winning the game. The quarterback gets the big interception on defense. Like seriously, it was a movie.
We just needed the old NFL Films voice, John Facenda, to narrate that final drive.
Yes, there you go. Honestly, you could have someone narrate that whole thing, and I don't know, maybe put Morgan, what's his name, Morgan Freeman.
Right.
Well, instead we get the Keith Brown.
Narrating
it.
I tell you what, it's I don't disagree with this. This was a very good drive, and when you looked at the whole game, if you were there, you're one of those people that were at the game. To me, the game was. Sonora got the ball and kind of went down the field. You're thinking, wow, okay, they kind of made that look fairly easy. And, Ayersville was moving the ball a little bit. Sonora made some adjustments quick and then kind of stuffed them. And then Ayersville wasn't really moving the ball much. And they were moving it a little bit here and there. And you really thought Sonora was just going to kind of go down that's it. That's, Sonora's showing their might. And then nothing. And then nothing and nothing and nothing. And then after halftime, Ayersville comes out, gets the ball right down the field and scores. Yeah. You're like,
I just have to laugh.
They got the 2-point conversion.
Yes.
They're like, this could be.
I just have to laugh because I told you guys too. I said Ayersville's a second half team. I said they were down 17-0 to Paulding, came back. I said you guys better buckle up because this is going to be a ball game. And sure enough, it was. And that game was just awesome to be at. And like AJ said too, literally the hair was standing up on you. There's a lot of emotion from both sides. The crowds were on their feet. That's what you look for when you're thinking of a Northwest Ohio football game. There's nothing better you can beat from a rivalry game to a big crowd to playing out in the middle of nowhere with no signal because we had issues with that too. So, but that was just a great game by both teams. And Coach Mickey and his staff over at Ayersville did a great job. And like I said, one or two things and that game could have gone either way.
That was my next point, Logan. That's Coach Mickey was probably up all night long just reliving that last drive in his head. That was a heck of a defensive stand by the Rams on that 4th and 4, 4th and 5. And honestly, Owen Ackerman was just a split second away from taking a pick six the other way on that. But good use of the timeouts by Coach Becker and his staff and that last drive. And it just worked out perfectly. And it's rest is in the history book.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the next hot take. We got couple more here. Next one, Napoleon will beat any of the small schools besides Liberty Center. So small schools, basically, I mean, on our power rankings, those are all the schools that we cover in the area. So you're throwing out Defiance, Wert. I think that's really it. The rest are probably all, because those are the two WBL schools. So you look at other schools, okay. So
OG.
OG, so throwing out OG. But, I mean, I think they could beat OG because OG is kind of down, but I don't know. I would like to see obviously Napoleon's matched up with Bryan in a scrimmage, and Napoleon dominated. So we know how they kind of fare there. And I know you can say it's a scrimmage, so you can kind of throw things out. But I would like to see like a Napoleon Archbold matchup, even a Napoleon Wauseon, which they used to for their non-conference game. Napoleon used to match up with Wauseon, which I'm not sure why that game went away, because that was always a good one. But at the same time,
a Napoleon Archbold game would be a good one to go watch. And Napoleon, a Napoleon Antwerp game would be interesting at this time.
It would, yeah.
This year.
Even Napoleon Sonora, like you throw in some things like that, because Sonora's been kind of all over the place, but sometimes they just find ways to win.
Right.
I don't agree with Napoleon will beat any of the small schools. I think they can beat most of them.
Right.
And I think Napoleon's been getting dogged on a little bit because they have had a losing record. But again, it goes back to they've played one of the tougher schedules in the area, and they play in the Northern Lakes League with a lot of schools that are actually, I think Napoleon's one of the smallest in the Northern Lakes League too. So I don't know. Thoughts on this, guys?
I'm right there with you guys. I think they can beat most, or at least a good portion of them, but I don't think they can beat all of them on any given year. It really depends on the year and the matchups and things like that.
I mean, like you said, they played one of the hardest. I mean, they played against Defiance, played against Liberty Center, played against Anthony Wayne. So they played some tough teams. They're not saying that they couldn't beat some smaller schools. I think they could. Could they beat a PH team, a healthy PH team? With an Ashmeyer in there, could they beat a PH team? Boy, I don't know. It's another one of those games you'd like to see him.
That'd be an interesting matchup.
You know what I mean? It'd be another one of those interesting games to see him go at it. But I'd like to see Napoleon do that.
Say throw them up against Antwerp and see what they do against Carson Ultimus and all the receivers and jackrabbits they have over there.
Yeah, the thing is, we'll probably never see any of those because you look at like the logistics of everything. Right. Napoleon has a lot more to lose than they do to gain if they were to play a small school. You're looking at points.
Right.
Because you get more points for beating higher divisions. And so basically if Napoleon were to play in Antwerp, if I was Antwerp, I would say, heck yeah, because if Napoleon or if Antwerp were to beat them, they get so many first round points. And then for every team that Napoleon plays all bigger schools. So you're toppling on your points after points after points.
Right.
So obviously you don't ever see, you will never see something like that, but it's just fun to think about too at the same time.
Yep.
All right. Last hot take here is Montpelier goes 7-3 and misses the playoffs. So I'm going to swing this one over to my man, Keith Brown, cause he's got all the stats and, analytics over here.
Yeah, unfortunately, like I said, this is all projections, wins, losses in the future, last 3 games. According to this, I hate to say this, Montpelier, if everything falls like it's supposed to, which never does, everything still has to be played. Montpelier will be on the outside looking in
at 7-3.
Yep.
Wow.
That would be.
So they have to win out. They have a chance, which puts them at 8-2.
Even so, if they finish 7-3, according to this, they'll finish 18th.
So if they finish 8-2. Well, they'd probably be on the road. That's crazy. Be 8-2. Finish 8-2, and you'd be on the road if you're playing in the playoffs. Yep. That's crazy.
And what region again is in division?
They are Region 26, Division 7.
Okay.
According to this, honestly, like I said, this is just projections.
Right.
Actually, Ayersville's 6-4, not qualifying for the playoffs either.
Wow. But again, you have to take all these with a grain of salt.
Yeah, because it's just projections.
But that's interesting to hear.
Absolutely.
Again, that goes to strength of schedule, and sometimes I think we always think that being 16 teams, it's a shoe-in. Basically, if you go 500, you get in. But it really does. Like, you still need to play some tough teams, and it's about getting the right wins too.
And this is what we talk about time after time after time again, which we realize these games are scheduled way in advance, sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. Your non-conference schedule at times, you never know how good a team's going to be, but if you search through and look for some quality opponents in the area, say 4 or 5 years out from now, that only helps you. And perfect example is Sonora. They're 4-3 right now and can wind up actually hosting a playoff game if they win the rest of their games. So,
and the thing we talk about, like Sonora's tough non-conference schedule. They just won one of those games. And I'm not even sure how Otsego's doing, but
they're 2-5. I think AJ looked at earlier.
Yeah, and again, it goes to just winning the right games and those teams that you beat getting wins as well. And just curious to see how things play out, but you really hope for the best because Montpelier's having one of the better seasons in a long time.
Yeah, that would just be unfortunate for those boys up there. But you can only control what you control, and that's what's on the field and win games.
Yep, exactly. So, I mean, what's in their hands is they have to go out every night, they have to compete, and they have to try to win every ball game to put them in a position to make the playoffs.
Yeah. What's one of the things that really annoys me about that is you could have a team that's 7-3, miss the playoffs, and yet you look at the Division I and you'll have a team that's 0-10 and make the playoffs because there's just not that many teams. Just to me is completely backwards. You should not have a team that's 0-10 make the playoffs. It's not worth it. And you're just doing it to fill. You're asking to get somebody hurt doing that, in my opinion. And
some of those 1-16 matchups should not take place.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I think obviously we talk about this, I feel like a fair amount, but I do think that 16 is a little too much for the region. And then some of it, because like you said, Tony, you're getting teams, Division I, you can make it without winning a single game, but even like Divisions 5, 6, 7, there are some teams that have losing records and things like that. Yeah. And there used to be a lot of strategy, like Keith is saying, like in scheduling teams, because you have to look at teams that, you think your team can go out and compete and possibly win, but B, to get enough points to put you in a position to make the playoffs. Like when I was playing, and I don't mean to be stereotypical back when I played, but you had, I think there was 8 or 12 teams, eight teams.
Eight.
Because that was before the first COVID expansion. Yep. And to make those 8 teams, and even before I played, they used to have 4 teams that made it.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say.
That was an absolute honor, and your team had to be an absolute menace to make those playoffs. Yep. But now, like you said, I feel like things are just so watered down, and it's not quite the same. But nonetheless, I mean, you still make the playoffs. You can't take that away from a team. So.
Right. I mean, it's like you just talking about when you played. Yeah, but I mean, back when I played in the late '80s, if you could go 9-1 and not make the playoffs,
right?
You know what I mean?
That's what I mean.
So you would be a stud team and not get in the playoffs. So when you talk about Montpelier being 7-3, misses the playoffs. I mean, man, it's kind of back to the old days when I played. If you weren't, like you said, absolute menace and just destroying everybody, you didn't make it.
Well, it's back when I was playing. It would have been your freshman year, my senior year. We had lost to Liberty Center. It was the only loss we had through the first 6 or 7 weeks, and we had to win out to make playoffs.
What was that year? 7-3 or 8-2?
We were 8-2.
8-2 and missed the playoffs.
Trace. Yeah, Wayne Trace ended up beating us and knocked us out of playoff contention at all, which was so frustrating to have such a good season just wiped out because one loss to a very good Liberty Center team who was always good, and a loss to a pretty solid Wayne Trace team. Now, if you're sitting at 8-2 as a Sonora team, you're hosting a game. You're hosting the playoff game.
Yep. All right. Well, that concludes our hot takes, so keep sending those in, as I'll usually ask a couple days leading up to the podcast for whatever hot takes you have in Northwest Ohio. So we appreciate sending those in. It always sparks really good conversation. So let's move on to the next one. Matthew's breakout players for Week 8. Matthew's offensive breakout player of the week is Trey Rubenstein from Napoleon. Reasoning is Clay has really struggled on defense this year, as the least amount of points Clay has given up in a game is 28. So I expect Trey to have a big week. My defensive player of the week is Trenton Cruz from Liberty Center. Reasoning is Evergreen has scored a combined 17 points in their 4 league games so far, and they have really struggled on offense, so I expect a big week from Trent. Again, Matthew's like the 21st century Nostradamus.
How did he do last week? I don't even remember.
I don't know. I can't remember who he had picked last week, but I mean, he's been right. I don't know, like
most of the time,
6 or 7.
Remember who he had, Keith?
I'm pulling up right now. Actually,
I don't know. We'll have to see.
Let's see here. Get all the way to the bottom here. He had Sam Harold from Bryan and Garrett Rodenberger from Defiance.
Pretty solid. And we know Sam Harold. He put up, 180 yards or so, and I'm not sure about Garrett just because obviously defensive stats are harder to come by, but I'm sure he had a really good performance as well. But nonetheless, Matthew's he's keeping his eye out from some stars in the area, and they always go out and they perform. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a break to hear from our sponsors, and we'll be back for our next segment.
Northwest Ohio Basketball hosts premier basketball tournaments for boys in grades 3 to 8 in the area. Upcoming tournaments are right around the corner. Give them a call today at 419-283-5400 5296 or check out their website at nwoball.com. The Thunderdome is your local indoor softball and baseball facility offering private lessons, turf infield, batting cages, and pitching machine rentals, even offering a golf simulator. Located in Archbold, Ohio. Give them a call today at 419-906-3643. Nicely Rentals and Storage is your go-to venue for graduation parties, birthdays, weddings, and more. Also offering vehicle storage, table and chair rentals, and U-Haul equipment. Located in Ayersville, Ohio. Give them a call today at 419-439-6177.
Trueland Equipment and Salesman Lauren Brown are your go-to for John Deere equipment in Archbold, Ohio. Mowers, compact tractors, skid loaders, and more. Your sales expert on commercial turf and CCE sales. Give Lauren a call today at 419-445-1565.
Back on the NWO Sports Podcast, and we're looking at Week 8 game predictions. So let's go ahead and we'll roll through here. Looking at the first game on the slate, Archbold 6-1 at Wauseon 5-2. Oh, you look at this one, and Wauseon is having a pretty good season at 5-2. You know, they're led by Tyson Rodriguez and Trey Parsons at quarterback. Archbold, we've got to see them play in person, and Archbold is legit. Really kind of playing, they dropped that one to Liberty Center, but really found their rhythm here late in the season. I just think that Archbold has more weapons and they're more dynamic as a team in terms of passing and running. We know Wauseon really likes to go out and sling it, and we also know Archbold's got a really good offensive and defensive line, so I'm going the Blue Streaks.
I've talked about this before in the previous weeks. Wauseon seems to be one of those teams that just can't get over the hill when it comes to big games. Taking Archbold.
I'm going with Archbold here.
The Streaks.
And Bryce and Matthew both had Archbold. Archbold across the board from everyone. Next game, Swanton 0-7 at Bryan 4-3. You look at this game, and obviously everyone knows Swanton's having kind of a rough year. They're trying to build that program back up, but at the same time, Bryan is taking care of business here with some of the teams. I really like their offense right now. I think this is a high-scoring game, and Bryan has control by half, so I'm going the Golden Bears.
Golden Bears.
Golden Bears.
Golden Bears.
And Bryce and Matthew both had Bryan as well. Next game, Delta 3-4 at Patrick Henry 6-1. I will say this game I sat and looked at long and hard because we know Patrick Henry is without the huge threat of Nash Meyer, and that was their entire offense. But, and I'll say it right now, I had Delta in there with a question mark to start. Delta's not too bad of a team, but I think Coach I over there at Patrick Henry, he's going to adapt. He's going to find ways to put his team in a position to win. And at the end of the day, I think Patrick Henry's got enough athletes, they get it done. But don't be shocked if this one's a ball game. So I'm going Patrick Henry.
Yeah, this is one of those games, Logan, that at one time was a clear pick winner. Now it's, wow. I took the Pats, took Patrick Henry.
Yeah, it's hard. But I think Coach I's got, he's got 40 years or 30 years of coaching in there. I think he's got the experience to overcome the adversity, and I think he'll find a way to pull us out. So Patrick Henry.
You said it perfect, AJ. PH for me.
Bryce and Matthew both had PH as well. Liberty Center 7-0 at Evergreen 2-5. We've talked about Liberty Center a lot this podcast. This is a no-brainer. Liberty Center wins this one big.
LC.
Liberty Center Tigers.
Bryce and Matthew both had Liberty Center. Next game, Ayersville 5-2 at Antwerp 7-0. Another game that could be kind of interesting. Ayersville's coming off a tough loss to Sonora. Antwerp's coming out squeaking a win by Wayne Trace. And didn't you say Wayne Trace scored late in the game too? So, that's kind of a false narrative there. But at the same time, Ayersville's going to go out and compete, no doubt. And, Antwerp's been in a lot of close ball games. Obviously, A, last week with Wayne Trace, and B, with Sonora. Ayersville can give Antwerp a run for their money, but I think the Archers take this one.
Yeah, this is one of those games where if Abe Delano steps up big for Ayersville, they could hang with Antwerp. But in the end, I think the Archers prevail.
Yeah, I'm going to take Antwerp for this week.
I don't think Ayersville's got enough weapons to beat an Antwerp team.
And
Archers.
Bryce and Matthew both had Antwerp. Next game, Edgerton 1-6 at Hicksville 1-6. Another game that should be a hard-fought battle. This one could be interesting. So I don't know. Edgerton's coming off a loss to Fairview. Man, I think I'm gonna go the Bulldogs on this one. I had Edgerton in there. I did have to think twice because Hicksville, they've got their one win too. I know that's against Hilltop, but I think the Bulldogs get it done.
This is one of those that go either way. In the end, I took the Aces.
I took the Aces simply for the fact they're at home.
Again, like you said, Logan, this is a tough one. It's kind of a toss-up, but I think Hicksville, looking at the schedule, I think Hicksville matches up a little better. I think I pick Hicksville.
Bryce had Edgerton and Matthew had Edgerton, so we're pretty split on that game. Next game, Fairview 1-6 at Wayne Trace 3-4. I really like Wayne Trace. They're a hard-nosed team. They play teams tough. I'm going to go Wayne Trace, but at the same time, don't doubt Fairview because Fairview shows glimpses of very good football. They're very well coached, first of all, because Doug Rakes is over there doing a great job. But we've seen glimpses of Fairview against Bryan. We've seen glimpses of Fairview against Tenora on the other side. So it really depends on what's going to come out of the Apaches. But I think I'm taking the Raiders.
This is one of those that should be entitled Better Than Their Overall Record Bowl. Like Wayne Trace is 3-4, but I think they're better than 3-4. Fairview 1-6, but they play like they're better than 1-6. And like Logan said, I wouldn't be surprised if we see the score at halftime and it's a 21-14 game. But in the end, taking the Raiders.
Yep, Wayne Trace Raiders.
I'm gonna put something out there, guys. I'm gonna put a dollar that there's probably more than 6 turnovers in this game. But I'm gonna take the Raiders.
Well, looking at the Antwerp game, there was 5 or 6 in that game.
So,
and Bryce had Wayne Trace and Matthew had Wayne Trace. So Wayne Trace across the board. Next game, Paulding 5-2 at Tenora 4-3. This is going to be a good matchup, and this is another game we've talked about. I think Tenora takes this one. I'm going the Rams, but Paulding is going to fight everything that they have to beat Tenora, and I like Tenora in this because they're also playing at home. They have home field advantage, but the Paulding Panthers are going to roll into town, and they're going to make some noise. And this game would not surprise me if it's back and forth, and it wouldn't surprise me if Paulding pulls this one out. But at the end of the day, I think I'm going the Rams.
I'm going the opposite spectrum, similar to last year when Edgerton came over to Tenora and was right there, top of the GMC. We're looking forward to that game. And Tenora just came out and just gave him the business, for lack of a better term. I took Tenora, and I think Tenora takes this pretty handily.
Yeah, I would agree with that one, Keith. I think Tenora is able to come out and punish Paulding a little bit and kind of put them in their place a little bit in the GMC. But I wouldn't be surprised if Paulding fights back, at least for the first half. I would say the first half might be a little closer, but I think the overall score at the end is going to be a little lopsided.
homecoming at Sonora. I picked the Rams.
Bryce had Tenora and Matthew had Tenora. So Tenora across the board. Next game, Eden 5-2 at Hilltop 1-6. Hilltop, they got their one win against Cardinal Stritch. Eden, we know, is a good ball club. I'm going the Bombers.
Yeah, this one could get ugly quick. Taking the Bombers.
Bombers for me.
Yep, big night for Sap.
Eden from Bryce and Matthew as well. Next game, Montpelier 5-2 at Northwood 2-5. Again, this is a must-win. We talked about Montpelier. They got to win these last few games. So I'm going the Locomotives, and I think they win this one handedly.
Locos.
Locomotives.
Montpelier for me.
And Bryce and Matthew both had Montpelier as well. Next game, North Central 6-1 versus Cincinnati College Prep Academy 5-1, and that's being played at Ellen East. And we just got off the phone earlier with Scott Thompson, head coach of the Eagles. I really like what they're doing there. I know the Cincinnati College Prep, they're a 5-1 team, but you look and, what was the team they played last week? I can't think of their name. Schroeder. Yeah, so I use that as a comparison. And North Central beat them pretty handily and more so than the Cincinnati team. So, therefore, I am going the Eagles, and I think that they win this one handedly.
Yes, thanks for Coach Thompson for coming on. Great interview. We actually had heck of an interview with them off air as well for another 20 minutes. But thanks for Coach for coming on. Taking North Central.
I'm going to go with North Central here as well.
Eagles for me.
And Bryce and Matthew both had North Central. Next game, Lima Bath 4-3 at Defiance 5-2. This could be interesting because Defiance just dropped a tough loss to Elida. Again, Defiance lost a close one to Van Wert. If you remember, Lima Bath actually was in a shootout with Van Wert, I believe the very first game of the year. This one could get interesting, but I think Defiance, they get on the right tracks here, and Coach Cooper gets the Bulldogs in the win column. So I'm going Defiance.
Yeah, time for the Bulldogs to focus, taking the Bulldogs.
Bulldogs for me.
Bulldogs.
And Bryce and Matthew both had Defiance. Next game, Ottawa-Glandorf 0-7 at Salina 6-1. Looking at this right away, obviously Salina is the clear favorite. But I thought about this one for a little bit because the way Ottawa-Glandorf played Van Wert, I know Salina beat Van Wert, but there's just a little thought in the back of my head that Ottawa-Glandorf might pull the big upset here. So, but at the end of the day, Salina's ahead of the WBL. I think they end up winning. So I'm going Salina.
Salina.
Yeah, Salina for me.
I did the same thing with you, Logan. I picked OG a few times last year, and I was there looking at that going, is this the week?
Right, yeah.
But no, I just think Salina's got too much for him, but you never know.
Bryce and Matthew had Salina as well, so Salina from all of us. Next game, Van Wert 4-3 at Shawnee 0-7. And I'm just looking across the board here. Van Wert's not going to like us, so I'm going Van Wert, and I'll let you guys tell your picks too.
Van Wert.
Yeah, I'm going to go Van Wert.
Cougars.
And Bryce and Matthew both had Van Wert. Next game, Clay 3-4 at Napoleon 3-4. Like I said, Napoleon's on a roll. I think they take this one. They're coming off a big win against Bowser, and they just beat Fremont Ross handedly. I think Napoleon takes this one and they win big.
Taking the Cats.
Yeah, I'm going to go Napoleon.
Napoleon.
Bryce went Clay and Matthew went Napoleon. So Bryce went against the grain on this pick here. Next game here, last one for 11-man. This is going to be the NWO Sports Game of the Week, and that's Crestview 5-2 at Columbus Grove 5-2. Huge matchup in the Northwest Conference. But I am all on board of the Columbus Grove Bulldogs and Coach Andy Schaefer doing an excellent job. They're coming off a sky-high win against Lipsick. I think the Bulldogs are going to win this one.
Yeah, I think experience prevails here, long-term experience, Columbus Grove.
Columbus Grove.
Oh my gosh, guys! This is the game that I was looking at, going, man, we're either all going to be exactly right or we're all going to be wrong in the same games, and this is one of them that I was thinking I'm going to go different. But man, I'm just watching that game, catching a little bit of them on TV the other day. I got to go with Columbus Grove.
And Bryce and Matthew both had Columbus Grove, so everyone had Columbus Grove. A couple of 8-man games here. Sebring McKinley 1-4 at Stryker 1-5. I'm going Stryker. I think this one's a close one for sure. I know both teams have kind of struggled this year, but I think Stryker prevails.
I took Stryker.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Stryker here.
Stryker.
And Bryce and Matthew both had Stryker. Last game here, Toledo Christian 4-2 at Holgate 6-0. This may be the first team that maybe challenges Holgate this year. So I know the Crusaders had a good game with them a couple of weeks ago, but I am going the Tigers. They're doing big things this year.
Tigers.
Tigers for me.
Holgate for me.
And Bryce and Matthew both had Holgate. Well, guys, that concludes our Week 8 game predictions. Closing thoughts.
Got to pick Walnut Heights and Ampipe. Who's going to win that game? Anybody know? Just kidding. No, great. Week 8 already. Oh, boy, we could stand here. We talk so much off camera. That's why your podcast lasts so long.
I know.
A lot of good games coming up. You're running out of Fridays to get out and support your local seniors and your local team. Tough break for Nash Meyer again. We all here wishing him nothing but the best. Keep sending Logan all the comments, email and text and stuff.
They're awesome.
Those are great. We love hearing from everybody from surrounding schools, coaches, players, family members. Continue to do that. So.
Yeah, I agree with Keith. It's just nice to hear those comments because a lot of time and effort does go into this. Yep. And, anything that you send me, I share with these guys as much as I can. I know sometimes it's almost too much. And
no, we appreciate it.
But I try to share a lot of the comments with these guys as well. So, yeah, appreciate the support. And, again, we just like supporting these athletes in the area and covering them. And we have a real fun time doing it, too.
Yeah, we're still texting on Friday night at midnight at times from after our game.
The thing for me is the season's starting to wind down now. You've got 3 games left in the regular season. As the season starts to wind down, all you parents and grandparents and all that stuff, if you've got seniors out there that are playing, you need to get out and watch them play because it's going to fly by, and then then that time's going to be over with, and you're going to have to find something else to do on Friday nights. But get out there and support those seniors in their last few games, and have some fun.
Yeah, and these last few weeks, they're make or break for teams. We talked about on the hot takes, a lot of these teams have to win out to make the playoffs. Yeah. So it's go time. It's now or never. If you're going to make a playoff run or even try to get into the playoffs, it's got to start now this week. So a lot of playoff implications on the line these next couple of weeks. So should see a lot of good games as well. So
yeah. So everybody out there can get sucked into these rabbit holes like we do here. The Ohio High School Football Database. Check that out. You could spend hours and hours. That's what I was doing earlier. I'm listening to these guys, but I'm checking out all these numbers. And then the one Logan's talked about before is Drew Pastor's Fantastic 50. You can spend all day on these two sites. I mean, literally, I can.
Drew Pastor's website, I came across it because he's tied with the Joe Itel website. Yep. And I came across that, probably years and years ago. But I came across that rabbit hole one night, and I saw that, and I just started looking. So I looked, obviously, for Tenora. I was from Tenora at the time in high school. So you click on this, and then you can click on the teams that Tenora played. So I clicked on Ayersville, and it's just a rabbit hole of if X, Y, and Z happens, this is the results of X, Y, and Z. Yep. And it gives the scenarios of 50 different situations. What are their chances of making a regional berth? What are their chances of making a winning state? What are their chances of making the playoffs? What are the chances of going this record? It's all broken down. It's unbelievable. You could spend hours and hours. If you're a football junkie, and especially for high school football, you got to check this stuff out because seriously, it's interesting to look at, especially once playoff time comes around because it does. And last year, I used it when Tenora was going to the playoffs because we were wondering how far are we going to have to travel for playoffs, and it gave Highland the highest % chance that we would play them, and sure enough, it was. And and it's just incredible of what this Drew Pastor does and all the analytics and stats and things that he runs and how accurate this whole program is too.
Yeah,
but nonetheless, check it out.
Yeah, check those out and. When you come back next week, send Logan a message and say, I spent 5 hours on those two websites.
Right. So anyhow, that concludes our podcast. And we would like to give a thank to all of our sponsors, 3-Chord, BSN Sports, and Jim Garris, Batt and Stevens Body Shop, Tenora Rams Live, Jimenez Basketball Academy, Fairchild Family Chiropractic, NWO Basketball, The Drop Zone Pizzeria, Crystal Vasquez of Amerimaid Realty, Optimal Performance Fitness, Nicely Storage and Rentals, the Thunderdome, and Truland Equipment and Lauren Brown. We'd also like to give a special thanks to Jeff Batt for allowing us to use his amazing new facility here at Batt & Stevens Body Shop for today's podcast. Stay tuned for the next NWO Sports Podcast in the near future, and thanks for watching.